Hello, I am Kara Jean, joining you from Oregon. I work with leaders who care deeply and want to impact without burnout. From the neurospicy lens, I focus on how real human nervous systems show up at work, especially under pressure. And this work, empathy, isn't a soft skill, it's leadership infrastructure. And I am delighted to be with you all today. So let's officially open the summit. Quick housekeeping. We are recording this session for educational and promotional use. The clips will be shared on social media. Please use the feedback form in the chat to submit your comments and stay plugged into our thriving ecosystem. Most importantly, you have permission to be human and take up space for your needs. So kids, fur babies, fidgeting, quiet time, this is a judgment-free zone. On behalf of the Empathy Center, I would like to welcome you to the Empathy Summit on the topic of how we might build an empathy movement. The Empathy Center's mission is to build an empathy movement and to raise the level of mutual empathy in the world through education and community initiatives. The summit isn't a one-off. It is the launch of an ongoing co-creation series. We're collaborating to generate meaningful insights and share the outcomes. Before we dive into that work, a massive thank you to our whole community, specifically our partners, sponsors, and volunteers. We get to pause for a moment and thank the people who make this possible. To our generous partners, sponsors, and terrific volunteers, you make this free event possible. All the links to connect with them and join the Empathy Summit production team, we meet every Friday, are posted in the chat. If you see more about us at the link, you can see more about us at the link in the chat. We invite your organization to partner, sponsor, or volunteer. Please see a list of our partners on our website. So let's start co-creating together. And when we're done, I ask you to share the fruits, the insights, the harvests from the summit, and share them as widely as possible. Thank you so much. It is my delight to bring up our first speaker, Jill Nagel. Jill is the
Nagel.
founder, not Nagel.
Nagel.
Nagel. Jill Nagel. Let me say that
Like
one.
bagel.
Bagel Nagel. Okay. Love that. Thank you for that. You're amazing. Okay, let's try that again. Take two. It is now my pleasure to introduce Jill Nagel.
Nagel.
Nagel. Oh, got it. Okay, let me try one more time.
Say bagel. That'll help you.
Nagel. She said it and it makes so much sense. Nagel. It is my pleasure to introduce Jill Nagel, the founder and CEO of Mendful, an app providing on-demand, human-forward conflict resolution. Today's topic is Mendful, an app to scale the empathy movement through our mobile data devices. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Kara Jean. So I would love for you all to imagine for a moment that it's 9 o'clock at night and you're settling in and you want nothing more than to get a good night's sleep. It's been a long day and you've got a long day tomorrow. However, you find yourself in an emotional entanglement with someone that you care deeply about. You really would like to get through it quickly and peacefully, get a good night's sleep, but you're both really activated and somehow stuck in this place where before, when you've been in this place, resolution has not come quickly or easily. Even though you're both really smart and skilled, empathy has somehow left the room. And not because you don't know how, and not because you don't care about each other, but because some less resourced, maybe younger parts of you are now running the show. Do you know anyone who's ever had a situation like this? Maybe you have. So this is an all too human circumstance. And sometimes the more deeply we're connected to someone, the harder it can be to get out of an entanglement. My fondest wish for the world is that when this occurs, and it does occur, that we have help. We have empathic human help available right then before the situation escalates into lost sleep, estrangement, despair, polarization, violence, or worse. The empathy movement has no lack of people who care and want to show up for each other. What it does lack right now is infrastructure to scale to meet moments like these, moments of disconnect. Right now, you could, if you wanted to, summon a human for rideshare, psychic services, food delivery, and even webcam entertainment 24/7. But not empathic conflict resolution? Doesn't our world need that even more? And especially right now. I have been interested in humans having more empathic conversations for a very long time. Let's go back for a moment together, if you will, even if you won't. I'm 8 years old and I'm looking through my parents' bookshelves, and I'm very precocious and I'm more than a bit of a know-it-all. And I see a book called Between Parent and Child by Chaim Ganat, and I leaf through it. And I'm awestruck by example after example of empathic dialogue. Wow, you really felt angry when I made that comment to you, says a parent to a child? Whoa, this was a whole new world. Something in me awakened. No one had ever talked to me that way, and certainly not a parent. So I ran to my father and I showed him the examples and I tried to coach him in how to talk to me. It didn't go over very well, as you might guess. He said, Ganat doesn't have any kids. Actually, I found out just a couple of days ago that Chaim Ganat did have 2 children. But it sparked my lifelong interest in how people communicate, how things go awry, and how we can use empathy to bring ourselves and others back into connection. I've led a bit of a double life. On the one hand, with these many decades of learning and developing and refining practices of healing and conflict resolution. And then the other hand, building a career in tech, specifically user experience, or how we optimize human interaction with the digital world. And right now seems like a really good time to bring these together because conflict in our world is unfortunately getting worse. 85% of employees report impactful workplace conflict. More than a quarter of us are estranged from a family member, and the divorce rate still hovers at around 50%. And younger generations need help to replenish the human skills lost to tech dependency. All this is why I am so passionate about creating Menful, an app to scale empathy by providing human conflict resolution on demand 24/7 and to make it as natural as to reach for a glass of water. Menful will leverage the same technology that helped divide us to deliver empathy-based conflict resolution exactly when and where it's needed most. Anytime, anywhere, from any device, for almost any type of conflict. Let's take a look at a couple of early screens that we've developed and see what they can show us and tell us about the app. So this is roughly what Menful will look like when you download it. And you'll get a choice. You can talk to a human coach, or you can talk to Mendy, our AI coach who is being developed. Or you can browse our library. Here's where it gets interesting. You know, Edwin, when I met you in 2009, it's kind of when, that was during my nonviolent communication mediation training. I had the idea that if people could witness other people having a conflict resolution, especially people who share the same points of view, they could get a vicarious hit of the resolution. And that was one of the seeds that led me, you know, over the years to develop Menful. So we'll have a library of conflict resolutions where, let's say, a gay son has recently come out to his conservative religious father, and since then it just hasn't gone very well, their relationship. Maybe dad won't come onto this app because he thinks he's scared of it for whatever reason. But maybe dad will surreptitiously browse the videos and find a man just like him with a gay son and get a vicarious sense of being heard and understood. And maybe that will impact his relationship with his son. So that's one of the things that we're hoping for. We're still working on the business model, but basically it's going to be a freemium. First 20 minutes is free, and then it's charged, whether it's the human or the AI. And here's roughly what it will look like. So we're going to have trained Menful conflict resolution coaches on the app. This is me, and I created something generic just as a placeholder. Here's where the value of cultural relevance comes in, that when you train as a mental conflict resolution coach, we encourage you to develop whatever niche reflects your life experience or your passion. For example, Jamal is a tender of friendship, and people call him the friendship whisperer. Michael runs men's groups and helps men reconnect with their hearts. Sandra's specialty is connecting Asian moms and daughters through the intergenerational rifts that can come with the immigrant experience. When you drill down, you can see people's bios, you can meet them in a video, and here's a chance to build a niche platform right within the app with blog posts, session recordings, and so on, and feedback. So you can get a sense of who you're talking with. Or you can just say, match me with the first available conflict resolution coach, because they're all going to be trained in helping. And then the session itself, we're still playing with what it will look like. We want to soften it beyond these squares of the the squares, the Brady Bunch type squares you see right now in the Zoom. So let me stop the share and go back. Any questions about that before I go on? And I'll have a little bit of time for questions at the end too. Was that a chef's kiss, Karen? So I want to share with you 4 of Menful's guiding values and approaches. And one of them is what we call internal reference. The word empathy means feeling into. And by internal reference, we mean not only empathy, but also the body, mind, spirit, and emotion-based approaches that hone and dimensionalize how we deliver empathy to help people in conflict move from their reactions and their stories into a heart-based, empathic place with themselves and the person they're in conflict with. We use nonviolent communication, a linguistic practice of internal reference. Oh, I saw that leaf flying up. That was really sweet. I've never seen that before. And we also use somatic or body-based practices. So Menful coaches can silently transmit and model a way of being that gently invites people from conflict back into connection with themselves and each other. I'm sure that all of you on this call are already doing things like this, and we'll share, how to do that with everyone. The second is cultural relevance that I mentioned. We want to train a diverse range of mental conflict resolution coaches so that people of any demographic can find not only human empathy, but also relevant and resonant perspectives that reflect their own lived experience, whether it's religion, age, gender, and so on. We want to be able to help people feel seen and heard. The third is right livelihood. We want to provide right livelihood opportunities to empathic people who may not fit into traditional job environments or who want supplementary income doing something they're good at that makes a difference to others, or both, whatever the circumstance. And the fourth is timeliness. We're starting an accelerated training in February to train mental conflict resolution coaches to staff the app for a soft launch in June because we think Menful is already long overdue. And there are many ways to get involved. And we invite you, if you're interested, to start with one of our January intro workshops and see if you resonate with the work. We have 4 different intro workshops in January before we start the first training cohort in February. And if anyone here is interested, please come as my guest using the code MENFULGUEST to register at menful.world, where you can also find out more about Menful. So that's all I have prepared to say, but I wanted to leave a couple of minutes for questions or thoughts in case anyone has anything alive.
A question?
We're out of time, so we're right on time right now at 9:15. So
if you want to text me in the chat, I'm happy to address it or put it in the main chat, whatever Edwin says.
I'll send you an email. Thank you.
Okay.
I love that. This is a perfect time to remind everyone that all of Jill's information, Nagel, like bagel, is in the link. Also, if you want to show up as her guest, menfulguest@menful.org. You had me immediately at dysregulated to resourced and on demand in your pocket conflict resolution. I live in an eco village, and that is community gold. That's where that chef kiss came from. We're going to have to talk. I love this. That was amazing. What a fantastic way for us to start. And now I get to introduce Imogen Bond, Managing Director of Empathy Labs at UK for not-for-profit which activates, develops, and celebrates the power of stories to build real-life empathy, passionate advocates for special equity, and creating conditions to raise thriving generations within a connected community. And Imogen will be talking on From Story Time to System Change, how reading can power the empathy movement. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. Very nice to be here. Hope you're all well and Happy New Year. Because at Empathy Lab, we are all about how stories can build empathy. I'm going to start with story time. So I invite you to sit back, relax, listen carefully, enjoy this story with me. And maybe as you're going through the story, if you can, you might want to put into the chat some of the ways you think the characters feel as you are hearing about them. You don't have to, you can just enjoy it if you want to, but if you would like to do that, feel free to jot into the chat how you think characters are feeling. And there is no right or wrong answer in this, so tell me what you're thinking as you go along. So this story is called Together by Katja Balin. She's a YA writer. She wrote October. You might know that one. But this is a short story from her, which was written especially for Empathy Lab. And you can find a lot of these on our website in our resources. So here we go. I am 12 and Max is 7 and he is singing. There are no words, but there is a tune that sounds like birdsong or an orchestra or whispered secrets. He runs his fingers along the car window and he spins his spinner and he points at the blue cars and the red cars, but not the yellow cars because they're not his favourite today. I turn the number plates into words with my codes and I tell Max the words with my hands and with my mouth, and sometimes he says them back, but mostly his hands are too busy pointing at endless cars. Max's favourite word is his first word, and today it's coming true because we're getting a dog. A grey puppy with a shaggy wolfy coat and big paws, and I am so excited I can't keep still. And I fidget and fiddle until Dad says I'll wear out my bones and fall apart. We arrive at the house, and Max tries to get out of the car too quickly, and he's a tangle of seatbelt and car seat and boy. His singing gets lower and more frantic, and I think we might be in trouble, so I point with one hand and I say dog with the other, and he sees Elvie in the front garden, and everything is going to be okay. Janice opens the gate, and 1,000 dogs bark, and Max curls his fingers into his ears, but he's watching and waiting, and his elbows are flapping like a bird. Elvie rushes to the front in a scribble of wiry wool fur and pink tongue, and Max sings again. I scratch Elvie's ears, and then I stroke the other puppies because they're swirling around my feet, a bit like hairy sharks. And then they're exactly like furry sharks because quick as a flash one nips my hand with bright white teeth and I shout, and Max looks up. There are 2 perfect red dots on my hand, and I blink. And Janice says, I'm so sorry, he's only playing, he hasn't learnt yet. And I know, and it's silly, and it's just a shock. But before I can say a single word, Max is there, and he's rubbing my hand with his, and he's holding out his very best spinner to me, and I take it. In the car on the way home, Elvie sits between us in her brand new blue harness that Max and I chose together, and she pants and yawns, and so Max and I stroke her scruffy fur until she falls asleep, and tomorrow we'll take her for her first walk together. So I hope you enjoyed that story. I am just going to share my screen for a moment and we can have a think about what that story is doing. So let me just go from here. Hopefully you can see that. So as I said, I'm from Empathy Lab. Our mission is to grow an empathy educated generation, many empathy educated generations, and we want every child to benefit from a really powerful reading based empathy education. So our approach is evidence led, and it really concentrates on improving young people's well-being, the individual's well-being and social and emotional development through the use of stories. But we also then use that to strengthen their relationships for more cohesive communities. So ultimately, that ends up with lots of generations making the world better for everyone. Empathy is the root of that, we believe. And we concentrate on reading because stories are a really brilliant training ground for understanding other people. In fact, evidence tells us, and the neuroscience tells us, that stories are one of the very best ways that we have to develop our empathy. And that's because books are like empathy engines. So hopefully, as you were listening to that story, you were seeing through the eyes of the character, you were thinking their thoughts, you were feeling their feelings, you were exploring what it's like to be in their world. You're looking through their eyes and standing in their shoes. And that helps you understand somebody that you might never meet in real life, or understand somebody even that's very similar to you and start to understand yourself better because of that. So there's been lots of research, particularly in the US, and now more research happening over in the UK as well, about the way in which reading and empathy are intertwined. So it's not just that reading fiction is an enjoyable thing to do, but that actually it can measurably enhance our ability to connect with each other. So reading can be a very powerful thing. And we just, in November, released some research that we had jointly done with the University of Sussex in the UK. And we found that actually it's not just that empathy is built through reading, but that there's a virtuous circle that happens when you use an empathy focused approach to reading and start to think about the character's thoughts and feelings as you're concentrating on the story. It's not just that the empathy is built, but that in turn makes for stronger readers. So empathy and reading ability grow together over time. And that matters because you might know there's been vastly declining levels of reading enjoyment pretty much across the world. So it's happened so much in the UK that our government has now decided that we're having a national year of reading to try to address this. So 2026 is our national year of reading. But actually that loss of reading enjoyment is replicated around the rest of the world as well. So reading can be this very powerful way of connecting with others. But if we do that, the stronger we become as readers, then of course the more we read and we keep going round in this virtuous circle. And there is evidence to show that reading enjoyment is the single factor that determines our future happiness and success. So across everything in terms of our ability to earn a living, our ability to work well with others, our ability to have good mental health, all of those measures of well-being and success, reading, really enjoying reading, is the thing that is able to predict them all. We need our kids to be able to read and to enjoy it and to choose to do it. And this is why. So the neuroscience tells us that what's happening in your brain when you're listening to a story or reading a story is very different to what's happening when you are hearing or reading factual information. So the brain on the right is what's happening in your brain when you're listening to a story. Your brain gets fired up in all sorts of ways that it doesn't if it's just simply trying to decode language and comprehension of language. What's happening is that your emotional centers, all of your emotive parts of your brain are starting to fire up. And that doesn't just light up those areas of your brain, it also prompts a hormonal response as well. You have a visceral bodily response to stories, which sometimes you'll notice and sometimes you won't. So if you've ever read something spooky and the hairs on the back of your neck have stood on end, or if you've ever laughed out loud at something, or if you've really missed the characters when you close the book, or cried when somebody has died within a story, that's that hormonal response happening. You're having a bodily response. And that's a very powerful thing. your brain doesn't really understand the difference between fact and fiction, how it experiences something in real life and how it experiences it through really richly narrated fiction is very, very similar. So our brains respond in this way to stories, and we can harness that power. And that's what we do at Empathy Lab. We turn this in its simplest form into this very simple way of working. So we read, we feel with the characters as we read, which is what I was asking you to do when you were listening to that story. Then we might have a walk around those characters. We reflect on them. We ask ourselves questions about how they're feeling. We discuss them. We share their points of view. We might think about all the different points of view that's, if you're working with a class of students, that might come to bear. Some people might have personal experiences of a character like Max in the story. They might have personal experience of being that big sister in that story, or they might not, and so they might want to bring different experiences to it. And then once we've had that thinking exploration and understood the different points of view, that we turn that into action. So we are always thinking about what can we do to spark this into action rather than leaving it at that reflective period. We want to really make change through stories. If you know anything about empathy, you know that there are three elements of empathy. And so that way of working reflects those three different elements. The feeling part, that time when you emote, the kind of affective part of empathy, where you feel something along with the character. Then there's the thinking part, the cognitive part, where you start to kind of walk around and understand them and take their perspective. And then a moment where you take action, where you're spurred to do something. Those are the three parts of empathy. So really, we're just using that and attaching it to the way that stories work. And there are a number of things that we can do to really make sure that when we're using stories, we are doing our very best to include that kind of empathy focus in the work that we do. And these are the things that we recommend, which are put into the way that schools work, the way that homes, that things that happen at home, with the way that libraries and bookshops work, anywhere where children and stories come together. These are the kind of tools that we want to be happening. So we want diverse, inclusive books. We want to make sure that books aren't banned and that representative books are available to young people. We want them to be read aloud and for book talk to happen. So it's not just about the reading, it's about the way that the conversation develops after that. So not answering questions about the book, but thinking aloud, wondering together about the story. There needs to be a real focus on character. I asked you, how did the character feel? Not how did you feel? So we want to really think about how the characters are feeling. And we want to keep our discussion within the safety of the story. So you might want to bring your personal perspective to it, but you don't have to. And of course, we want to try to immerse children in the story, whether that's through creative activity, through art, through drama, or simply through eating the food that the characters are eating, smelling the smells that they're eating, going for a walk and discussing the story through the place that they have been in, the characters themselves. And we've turned this way of working into a number of different programs which you can access. Some of them are free to access. Everything happens digitally, so you can take part anywhere across the world. First of all, there's our Read for Empathy collection. So this will come out in February every year. From the previous year, we pick 65 of what we think of the best kind of empathy-rich books for 3 to 16-year-olds. And so
Jean, this is amazing. I'm so sorry to stop you. We are at time and I need to move on to
no worries.
The links are in the chat. Please connect. I aggressively agree that teaching children is the best way to build this empathy moment. Know better, do better, teach better so we can be better. Thank you
Exactly.
so much for the work that you are doing.
That's okay. I'm just going to put this up. If anyone wants to contact me, you're more than welcome. Look on our website, you'll find everything in there.
Thank you so much.
And if you could close the share screen too. There you go.
And it's in the
Okay.
chat. So connect, connect, connect. It is my pleasure to bring on Tony Scruggs on how to build the empathy movement. Take it away.
One
Thanks.
moment. Let me bring you up here. Where did you go? looking for the. Oh, there you are. Up 1 second. There we go. Somebody did it. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, CJ. And Chi of Love, thank you, Edwin, for bringing us all together, for planting the seed, and for the gracious invitation. Edwin, I feel deeply appreciative for the inclusion, the acceptance, and this adventure. And I hope you're able to receive this gratitude with the intention that it's being given. What's up, Team Humanity? Gustaría saber cómo te sientes en este momento, or in Swedish, hur är det dig? Or as I usually say, how you feeling spiritually, emotionally, and physically? My parents gifted me with the name Anthony Raymond Scruggs. And if a picture speaks 1,000 words, here are 10 words that I think speak 1,000 pictures. I am a Montessori Methodist raised in Palo Alto, California. I am a Montessori Methodist raised in Palo Alto, California. My friends call me Tony, my teammates call me Scruggsy, and the universe calls me Simba, spirit, mind, and body with inspiration and abundance mixed in. My personal intention is to live the awakened life in the unknown field of all possibilities beyond right and wrong doing, where Rumi and Shakti Gawain are hanging out, painting portraits of the grandest version of the greatest vision that we hold for all living beings, sometimes using my unlimited power to awaken the giant within and get the edge. How I see myself, a spiritual being exploring life as a higher shade of brown American of African ancestry. You catch that Wayne Dyer spiritual being having a human experience? A spiritual being exploring life as a higher shade of brown American of African ancestry. And my stops along the way include UCLA, where I was a student. I was in a fraternity. I played sports. Major League Baseball with the Texas Rangers back when President Bush used to run the team. India with Gandhi's grandson, where I learned the philosophy of nonviolence and the tools of nonviolence for communication. And in the last few years, I have had the great honor of being trained in trauma and resiliency by some of the top experts in the world, including silence breaker Louise Godbold and my favorite neuromagician, Miss Constellation herself, Sarah Payton. Now, I love PowerPoints. At the same time, the Montessori kid in me was like, you know what, dude? Today is a great day to practice your Deepak Chopra letting go of attachment. So you let go of that PowerPoint and you show these nice people your fear, your vulnerability, and your anxiety. So that is what I am going to do. At the same time, I know what it's like to be a participant and want something to refer to. So I copied a bunch of stuff into my clipboard and I'm going to paste it in the chat when things get juicy. So here we go. Today, I want to address 3 questions. Number 1, and let me see if my chat is ready to go. Boom! We are ready. Number 1, what is empathy for me? The micro version, what is empathy for me? Number 2, how would I define violence non-violently? You catch that? How would I define violence non-violently? And number 3, how do I see empathy in relation to building the empathy movement? In relation to building the empathy movement, how do I see empathy? So question number 1, what is empathy for me? Generally speaking, I see empathy as the respectful understanding of another person's experience. Paste it in the chat. Boom! The respectful understanding of another person's experience. When we're in schools with kids, we expand the definition of empathy using a mic check. And for those who are unfamiliar with the mic check, it's the call and response, repeat after me game/strategy, where one person says, mic check, and everybody says mic check back. And then you just do repeat after me, call and response until the original person says, mic's off. The microphone is off. So when we're with kids, we do it as a mic check. Let me paste that into the chat. Oh man, it is working. So what I want you to imagine, I'm going to rate it straight through, but what I want you to imagine is when we're with kids in schools, we're pausing every 5 to 8 words so they can reflect it back. But I'm going to read this one straight through. Here we go. Mic check. Even though empathy is seen as pain, suffering, and shoe swapping, at the Empathy Institute, we see it as understanding the emotions, which is hearing what people are feeling, and understanding the motivations, which is noticing the common human universal needs being expressed of another person and or ourselves. Mic's off. The microphone is off. So the expanded definition is understanding emotions, hearing what people are feeling, and understanding motivations, noticing what people are needing. So that's question one. Question two, how would I define violence non-violently? When I started my empathy journey, I was like, non-violence this, non-violence that. And I'm sure my friends felt deeply, deeply annoyed. I had one friend who was like, "Oh, Scruggsy, that sounds so interesting, though. I'm curious, what's the definition of violent communication?" And I was like, and the only thing I could think of was some Rosie said, Rosie being Marshall Rosenberg, the architect of empathic communication. The only thing I could think of was that something Rosie said about the tragic expression of an unmet need. As soon as I said it, I wasn't satisfied. They weren't satisfied. I knew I needed a deeper definition that resonated with people. So I went on a search. I was reading, I was listening to audiobooks, and then a few months later, I'm listening to an audiobook while I'm working out, like mid push-up, and Rosie tells this story about being in Europe in this public square, and he sees that there's this dude who's about to hit a woman. He realizes there's no time for kumbaya empathy, like, excuse me, sir, are you feel there was no time for that. So he jumps in and he stops the dude from hitting the woman. The context of the audiobook was the difference between the punitive use of force, causing harm, and the protective use of force, preventing harm. And I knew there was something in there. And a few days later, I wrote this down. Violence equals attacking force. Violence equals attacking force. And then a few moments after that, I wrote violent speech equals verbal attacking force. Violent speech equals verbal attacking force that minimizes, dehumanizes, and demonizes. Now I was satisfied. At the same time, I wanted a philosophical container to put it in. And a few days later, it came through me. This acronym came through me. And if you want to jot it down, I have no objections. The acronym that came through me was PET, like pet, PETI hyphen AF. And if you're thinking that AF, yes, that AF. And if you're not sure what AF means, Google slang AF. Slang AF. The acronym sounds out to petty AF. You get it? Petty AF. And it stands for painful energy turned into attacking force. Painful energy turned into attacking force. And that became my philosophical container. So that's questions 1 and 2. How about number 3? How do I see empathy in relation to building the empathy movement? How do I see empathy? Three-dimensionally. And if you like Saturday Night Live, you may enjoy this. First dimension, skill. S, skill. Second dimension, need. N, need. Third dimension, and y'all know an L word is coming, don't you? Language, L, language, a skill, a need, a language. So what's the skill? I think the skill is guessing the feelings and unmet needs of another person, becoming an empathic detective. For example, let's say I'm around somebody and they say aloud, XYZ sucks. My ears hear XYZ sucks. The empathic detective starts guessing, sounds like XYZ is really frustrating for this person. I wonder if it has something to do with care or consideration or courtesy. I wonder what's going on. So the skill for me is becoming an empathic detective and guessing the feelings and unmet needs of another person. What's the need? You all know the need to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. If you want one word, visibility. Visibility, to be seen, to be heard, and to be understood. So, empathy is something we need. Empathy is something we can give as an empathic detective. And empathy is something we can speak. The language. What does that look like? A, speak in observations instead of judgments. B, instead of connecting judgments to thoughts, we connect feelings with unmet needs. And C, and this is my favorite, CJ, this is my favorite, hug people with requests instead of punching them in the face with demands. So, for example, let's go back to that XYZ sucks. So judgment says XYZ sucks. Empathy says when XYZ happens, I feel ... Judgment connected to thought says XYZ sucks, therefore you suck. Empathy says when XYZ happens, it's really frustrating because I love, I need, I value order and dependability so much. And then finally, demand, connected to judgment, connected to thought, says XYZ sucks, therefore you suck. So if you don't do E, F, and G immediately, I'm going to rain terror on thee. Empathy's like, first of all, judgment, chill. Secondly, when XYZ happens, it's really frustrating because I love, I need, I value order and dependability. So, given the choice between E, F, and G, would you be willing to choose one and complete it tomorrow afternoon by 3? So, oh, by the way, this can be used as code for identifying violent communication. You can use this pattern, and let me put this in the chat. You can use this pattern to identify code for violent communication. If somebody speaks in judgments connected to thoughts, connected to demands, oh, this is violent communication. So you have a little code to work with. So, how do I see empathy? I see that we need empathy. I see that we can give empathy, and I see that we can speak empathically. So, how might we build the empathy movement? With precision, with clarity, and with strategy. With precision, with clarity, and with strategy. So, I'll leave you with this one question, a quick mic check, and a brief farewell. Here's the question: what is empathy for you? What is empathy for you? And here's the mic check. So stay muted on your side. I'll say it aloud on my side, and then you say it aloud on your muted side. Here we go. And I'm watching your lips, CJ. Mic check. With strength and kindness, with bravery and empathy, we will affect positive change spiritually, emotionally, and physically. Mic's off, microphone is off. So let me say, the way I see it, life's a celebration, especially when we observe without evaluation. And if you're wondering how I feel, I'm grateful for your time. May all of our journeys be surreal. I'm Tony Scruggs, the empathy guy. Together we rise, together we fly. That's my set, y'all. Let's testify and multiply. Thank you and Happy New Year.
Oh my goodness, how wonderful and absolutely brilliant was that, and fun. You had me at the inclusivity, common human universal needs and motivators. This may have been the most accessible NVC intro I have ever heard. Thank you so much. It is now my pleasure to bring on, do we have both of my ladies here? I have Maria and Ranjitha. I'm hoping I got that name right, and I'm not going to try the last names because we all saw how badly I did at that earlier. So it is now my pleasure to bring on Maria and Ranjitha. Maria is a transglobal corporate leader in her Empathy Factor book process and coaches nonviolent communication trainers to do the same. Ranjitha is a certified nonviolent communicator trained in Bangalore, India, who helps teams work better together. And today they're going to talk on an empathy movement in organizations. making empathy repeatable, transferable, and scalable. Take it away, ladies.
CJ, I'm going to share my screen. Thank you, Edwin and team, for having us here. And yeah, good morning to those of you joining in from the Americas. Good evening if you're joining from my part of the world, or maybe you're somewhere in between. My name is Ranjita, and a little more than a decade ago, I discovered nonviolent communication, and it was something that answered this question for me. I want to be empathetic, but how? You know, it was always one of those virtues that was talked about, but nobody ever told me how to do it. And NVC answered that for me. And once I discovered that, once I started learning NVC, I wanted to find a way to share it with organizations in a way that made sense and that made impact. And this was sort of, it was my quest. And that's when I came across the work of Marie Miyashiro. Marie is here with us. And this, you know, coming across Marie's work was what helped me take a new approach to sharing nonviolent communication with organizations, making empathy repeatable, transferable, and scalable, not scarable. So thank you, Marie. Marie and I are planned this less as a talk and more as a conversation between the two of us. And we'd absolutely love to hear from you as we have this conversation. So feel free to send your comments, questions, or anything that you'd like to share with us in the chat. Marie, over to you.
Great, thank you. Aloha and welcome to 2026. I'm speaking to you from Honolulu, Hawaii. And maybe if we can just take the screen share down for a minute so I can just see everybody and we can see them. And I want to give a big shout out to Tony. I came in only at the end, but immediately knew it was NVC and loved his energy. And Tony, I sent you a chat. I don't know if you're still here, but I would like so dig and enjoy connecting with you. So I don't know how to reach you, but you know, maybe we can find a way to connect, and I'd love to have a chat with you if you're willing and open to it. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for that energy and that accessibility, as Kara Jean said. So you've got Tony on one end and, you know, sort of the intro, and then you've got me and Ranjita sort of on the other end. Like, how do we bring this to organizations? And I wanted to say something about organizations because sometimes, you know, in the NVC community, I don't know how all of you feel. Maybe you can go from 1 to 5 in the chat and give me a scale, give me and Ranjita a scale. But I think sometimes there are enemy images of organizations in the empathy community, in the NVC community, because we are so aware of the harm that comes from these hierarchical systems, power over systems, as Marshall Rosenberg talked about. And so what we wanted to do was to show you how there is another way. And it is working, and it is possible to make a difference in the world by influencing the people who have access to great resources in organizations. These can be NGOs or, you know, corporate people. But, you know, I have a surprise for you. In all these systems of power and organizations, there are people. There's like people inside of these systems. And so Ranjita and I
And people with needs, Marie.
Yes, and people with needs. And so thank you, Ranjita. And so Ranjita and I are part of this global cohort in the NVC community, most of whom are certified trainers in nonviolent communication. And here's a picture of Marshall. You know, we're all like many people in the NVC community, our lives changed when we met Marshall Rosenberg. So the beauty of this is that when I met him, we talked about, I was an organization development consultant. So I was already doing work in how to make organizations more human and yet more productive, right? So it's like, thanks, Kara Jean. It's this, how do we do both, right? So organizations, first of all, are both and worlds. They're incredibly complex. And the ability to grow a skill, and hey, Edwin, I didn't see you. Aloha and Happy New Year. The ability to be able to hold complexity is something that the certified trainers that we're working with in our cohort are learning is different than just the I and the you, the intrapersonal and the interpersonal. So we've got a metaphor that Ranjita and I want to share with you about how we see organizations. I want to make sure I can see the next slide here. So what makes organizations complex with bringing empathy, and this applies to our work, nonviolent communication, or any of the other beautiful models of empathy out there. There are many. We are not the only one. NVC is our favorite one, so we're sharing it with you. There are three levels of relationships in organizations. And these relationships are realities. So there's the intrapersonal. What would you say about the intrapersonal, Ranjita?
I think this is the one, Marie, that I was most familiar with learning nonviolent communication. Of course, we start with self-empathy, empathy towards ourselves, being aware of our own feelings and needs. And this is my relationship with myself. So every person in an organization has a relationship with themselves in some way.
Exactly. And it's what we're telling ourselves. And Tony was talking about that a minute ago in the intro. So it's so great that we followed him. Thank you for arranging that. And we picked an image of a tree here because this tree is part of a living system, but it's also an individual thing. You know, it's an individual living organism within this larger organism. So organizations are not like human beings. I believe they have universal organizational needs. That's the work that I brought in my book. And I had met with Marshall Rosenberg. He and I co-authored a paper about it. So I have a high level of confidence that it doesn't conflict with human needs. Because where it's different than a person is that it's not the same kind of consciousness as a human being. So organizations do not have the same rights as a human being. The people are what matter, and they are creating this larger entity to do some kind of purpose. Hopefully, it's a life affirming purpose in the world. So the tree is an example I like to use because it is a living system all by itself, just like a human being. So that's the I, but there's also the you.
Mm.
And in this you, yeah.
This is, I think, what most people talk about when they talk about empathy, especially at work. When I work with organizations, a lot of the time the conversation is around empathy in the sense of when someone's angry at me, angry with me? How do I respond to them? How do I actually talk to my boss? How do I talk to my somebody who I work with, a vendor or a client? And this is, of course, the relationship any person in an organization has with another human being in that sphere.
Yes, and they're affecting each other, and together they're starting to make a forest. And and the third level is a we. And these photos, I know for sure that two of these photos are from the Amazonian rainforest, most of which is in Brazil. And as you know, it's endangered. So I wanted to highlight this as a living system. And what I like about this picture of the we is that from above, you can see patterns that you can't see at the I and the U level. And this is what is different about bringing NVC to organizations or empathy to organizations is to try to hold, embrace, and accompany this group of people who are there for a shared purpose. They're there for a shared purpose. And it doesn't mean that the individual needs are subsumed. It doesn't mean that to the organization. What it means is that there's a way to balance and integrate all three levels so that there's progress and growth in a way that affirms life. Okay? So people in organizations are there because they want to achieve something together. Not achieving it does not meet their individual needs as well as the organization's needs. And there was one more thing I wanted to say about that, but it slipped my mind. So what's your thoughts about that, Ranjita?
Yeah.
It'll come back to me.
When, this idea of the we, Marie, when I heard it, the first time I heard it, it made so much sense because I think it's something we all experience when we're part of an organization. And at the same time, it's something we talk so little about. So I experienced in the organizations I worked in, the way I experienced the we, and those of you who are listening to us right now, I'd love to hear how you experienced the we on the chat. How I experienced the we was sometimes there were ways in which people were talking to each other. There were certain kinds of language that were implicitly allowed or encouraged, and certain kinds of language that were discouraged. There might have been certain policies that hinted at something. There was how we were with each other. So a lot of these ways, I think we experience the we, and yet when I discovered this, the idea of the we, I thought, wow, we never talk about it, though it's such a huge, huge part of our life in organizations.
Yes, and thank you for reminding me. What I wanted to say is that, I think it's helpful to remember that organizations are a relatively new invention in human evolution. So the Neolithic era, when we began to use tools as human beings, was one of the last great revolutions, along with the Industrial Revolution, which was a few hundred years ago. So organizations are new. Before then, people mostly stayed in the areas they were born and raised in and worked with people who came from their same cultural backgrounds. The world is so different now. So at the we level, we have things like diversity. We have things like, in this case, it's a biodiversity, right? So the canopy of these trees allow the what's underneath to grow on the forest floor. So they're all working symbiotically together. And in the best run organizations, this is what happens. There are very few organizations that run this way because we're still learning. We're still learning and we're evolving. And there are so many ways in which there has been harm, and there are so many ways where there has been wonder and good. So again, that complexity of holding both and. So my view is if you want to change the world, it's helpful to work with organizations because they have a command of so many resources. And if we can affect the people in these organizations, the choices they make, I believe, will be different. And I myself have personally worked with a company, a global French-based company that promised and worked for 10 years toward and achieved giving a complete cost of living wages to 85,000 employees across the world. So this covered housing, medical, food for the family in the wages. So they paid what could cover these people according to whatever country they were in. And I like working for these kinds of companies. And these are the kinds of companies, of course, that will be attracted to this kind of work. So here we are. I told Ranjita the 15 minutes was going to fly by. So we just want to show you two more slides, the book. There's 3 books. Our work is only one of many wonderful things happening. And the 3 key lessons, I guess we have to do speed dating here. So 3 key lessons. I guess we'll just show the summary slide, Ranjita, of the 3. Yeah, thank you. So in order for us, because of the we, it has to be repeatable. And repeatable means it comes from a model. Transferable means it can happen over and over again when you do the training. And scalable means there's a way for the organizational goals to be included in it. So, and there's other books like the Change Handbook and Sam Kainer's work that has influenced us, but we're at our time, so it flew by.
I want to come back and
Yeah.
I want to come back to this and talk about one more thing, Marie, and that's, without the we, I think the we for me was the missing link in sharing NVC with organizations, because without the we, anything in organizations that we try to address with nonviolent communication becomes an interpersonal issue. And we know that when we're in an organization, it's not just about me and you. There's the larger context that influences each of us and the relationship we have with each other. So
Oh,
I think the we for me has been the missing piece in bringing more empathy into organizations, moving from building into internal capacity for individuals into culture transformation.
ladies, this was incredible. Thank you so much. I love empathy and NVC going to business. Turns out businesses are full of people and people are full of hormone soup, and we can either address that nervous system up front or manage those behaviors forever. I'm hearing ecosystems over organization charts, and now you're speaking my language. Ugh,
And
this
if
is
you could stop the share, there
amazing.
you go. Yeah, thanks.
We are an hour in, and I am overflowing with hope and joy. Thank you to all of our speakers so far. It is now my pleasure to introduce Lou Agosta, PhD and is an empathy consultant, the author of 3 peer-reviewed books on empathy, including Radical Empathy in the Context of Literature, The Empathy Lessons, and he is a clinical assistant professor of psychiatry, wow, I said that one weird, the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable, at Ross University School of Medicine and St. Anthony's Hospital in Chicago. Today, he's going to be speaking on building the empathy movement with rhetorical empathy. Take it away.
Well, thank you for that gracious introduction, Kara, and thank you, Edmund, for putting this all together and the whole team. This is not an easy thing to do. So I must say, I am humbled by the speakers and the material presented so far. The one thing really missing in my life is that my name is not Tony Scruggs. But I do not want to undercut myself. I have a contribution to make. I'm not kidding about it. I mean, well done. And the business about Menful and the app, that is definitely trending. And in the world of shameless self-promotion, we're going to going to handle the shameless self-promotion right up front. I'm into storytelling and reading, and as if so, I sent Imogen Bond. I sent you an email. We'll communicate further, but I do write and publish. I hope that this comes through. I don't know. Is this straight radical empathy in the context of literature? It looks like is it presented backwards there? I don't know. No, it's presented straight, or is it crooked?
It looks good.
Okay, good. Radical empathy in the context of so it's about examples of empathy in literature, not children's literature. This is grown-up literature, and it's an expensive book, an academic book. So the recommendation and the request is to have your institute, your university, or a college library, or local library for that matter. They have budget for this sort of stuff, to order a copy. So I'm going to talk about. I actually have a presentation. I'm going to talk about rhetorical empathy. And I like the good advice about, don't get hung up on the PowerPoints, although they do have their uses. Here's the 10-second video that I want to share. Let's see if this is, of course, Malcolm X here. Here's an example of radical empathy.
Our forefathers weren't the Pilgrims. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. The rock was landed on us.
Okay, that's it. So why and how? It gets a laugh, right? I mean, it is like painful truth. So let's take a moment. This is, I suggest a stunning example of rhetorical empathy, where he's addressing the meeting founding the Organization of African American Unity. This is 1964. This is before the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and a predominantly African American audience. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock was landed on us. Plymouth Rock, most people know that's where the Pilgrims landed, but you may be, if you're from somewhere else, you may not know. The Pilgrims, got to the USA, they landed on Plymouth Rock. The next thing you know, we're having Thanksgiving, and it's a kind of cultural event. So rhetorical empathy, and this is to expanding the structure and the movement. Rhetorical empathy is not well known. It's not a common distinction. And it refers to empathic responsiveness, speaking into the listening of the person with whom one is attempting to empathize, with a form of words that indicates that one understands what the other person has experienced. So one aspect of empathy is that when it works, the audience or the other person has the experience of being heard, even though it's the other person that's doing the listening. So the person is left, right? This is a major result. If you can get there, I mean, high fives. The other person was the speaker and sharing whatever they were sharing and dealing with suffering, struggle, success, the whole spectrum. So the speaker takes in rhetorical empathy. So, I get you, man. I feel vicarious experience or not, or top-down empathy. Take a walk in the other person's shoes. I then, I mean, without saying something, empathy is a tree in the forest which falls, and there's nobody there. Well, does it make a sound? I mean, well, the molecules are moving, but if there's nobody there, nobody's listening. So the speaker who was listening to the other person share, the speaker takes the experience of the other person, which means that I, as the listener, have to know the other person in the sense of what the other person is about and what's important to him or her, and give back to the other the experience of that person's struggle and suffering or success or accomplishment or problem solving or whatever the other individual, man or woman, is up to. And so there. So at the risk of oversimplification, empathy is supposed to be about listening, receiving the inbound message, whereas rhetoric, the art of speaking well, so I mean rhetoric in a positive sense, that rhetoric, the art of speaking well, is usually regarded as about speaking, bringing forth, expressing, and communicating the outbound message. So once again, in the case of empathy, the initial direction of communication is inbound. I get you, man. I get what's going on, or not, questions, comments, struggle to understand. Whereas in the case of rhetoric, the message, the communication is outbound. You didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock was landed on you. Yet, so the practices of empathy and rhetoric are not as far as apart as may at first seem to be the case. And it would not be surprising if the apparent contrary directionality turned out to be a loop, and the arts of empathy and rhetoric reciprocally enable different aspects of authentic relatedness, community, sharing, empowering communication. So, I summarize, I say again, in rhetorical empathy, the speaker's words address the listening of the other person or persons in such a way to leave the other with the experience of having been heard. This may seem counterintuitive since it's the other that's doing the listening. The hidden variable here, there's a hidden variable, this is the trick, if you will, the deep structure of this is that the speaker knows the other in the sense that he or she has walked a mile in the other person's shoes. I take off my shoes and I try on yours. Don't forget to take off your shoes before you try on the shoes of the other person so you can know where they pinch and can articulate the experience of the other, what the other is implicitly harboring in his or her heart and has been unable to express. So, what seems like a paradox, rhetorical empathy, but isn't empathy about listening? What seemed like a paradox is resolved as the distinction between oneself and the other person, the speaker and the listener, is bridged, and a way of speaking that incorporates the other's listening into one speaking is brought forth and expressed. So, rhetorical empathy is a way of speaking that incorporates the other's listening into one speaking in such a way that the other is able to hear what is being said. Okay, so I'm terribly behind schedule, but there's sufficient time. I'm going to give you another example. This example is a little more complicated, but I'm going to give it anyway. So there's somebody named John Stuart Mill, and he's one of the innovators around critical thinking. connect statements to facts, take a walk, think from the opponent's point of view. You disagree with someone, try to take a point of view, critical. There's a lot more to it. I mean, and this is to education as well. Teach critical thinking. I mean, you can't do this in 2 weeks. I mean, it you can do it in 2 weeks, but it really takes 2 years to master, right? So Mill says, this is. I'm going to give you the whole sentence here. It's like it's a long sentence. If all mankind, if all of humanity, the 8 billion people on the planet, if all mankind minus one person were of a certain opinion, and only that one person were of the contrary opinion, mankind would be no more justified in silencing that one person than he or she, if they had the power, would be justified in silencing all of humanity, all of mankind. So you get it? This is minority rights, another way of putting it in a single phrase. Majority rule is important, and we love democracy, and it doesn't always work quite that way. This is an expression of radical toleration. And it relates to radical empathy. I may not agree with you, but I defend your right to say it. And at this point, we need to stop and just reinsert Tony Scruggs' statement. But basically, I feel like we could just replay his statement, and not to undercut my own. There's some good material here. Nevertheless, at this point, reinsert what he said about make observations, not judgments. This is powerful stuff. We actually do want to see, if you withhold the PowerPoint, people really want it. Then they demand it from you. So, one does not have to worry about the nuanced expression of what the other person is authentically thinking and feeling. One doesn't need a subtle and sensitive empathy to get what is going on with the other guy, man or woman, if they tell you something confronting. XYZ, it sucks. Your empathy is off, and the reason is XYZ, right? You're going to hear about it. I mean, not a lot of subtle empathy is needed to get the message there. One is going to hear about it directly from the other person as he or she exercises the right of self-expression. So, here's the thing. Mill's principle, this is a principle of toleration. It lowers the bar on empathy and makes empathy easier. It's the teachable moment. Nothing needs to be hidden for fear of censorship or reprisal. This is the 1-minute empathy training, and I see I have actually 2 minutes left, so that's perfect. Drive out fear, drive out bullying, drive out bad language, drive out politics in the negative sense, and empathy naturally comes forth. People want to be empathic, and if given half a chance, will be so. But you see, this is a big job. Drive out bullying, aggression, hostility, violence. I mean, so, the 1-minute training can be delivered in a minute. It really can. But to create the context of toleration and acceptance is, that's a big job. So I'm going to wrap it up here with, actually, in the matter of storytelling, I do want to tell the story of the emperor's new clothes, right? I mean, this is the confronting moment. But Your Highness, Your Majesty, your rear end is hung out. In this case, your white, hairy, naked rear end is hung out to dry, and because you got sold a bill of goods and a bunch of clothes. So speak truth to power, which is, of course, what Malcolm X is doing there. And I will say another poet who does that, and I'm going to wrap this up here with, a quotation from that poet, Bob Dylan, who takes up arms against, this is a poem, if you will, 1965, about climate change. He may not have appreciated it, but you know the song. Come gather round. I wish I could do a Dylan accent. Come gather around people wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accepted that you'll soon be drenched to the bone if your time to you is worth saving. Then you better start swimming, or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changing. So this is a space of inquiry, of asking what's possible, brainstorming, calling forth projects in action. This results in a rigorous and critical empathy. nor should going forward any committed empathy advocate refer to empathy in any other way. The poet gets the last example of rhetorical empathy. One has to, I get it, one has to put off the shore of certainty and venture forth into the unknown. Dylan interrupts his climate change advocacy to become an empathy enthusiast. He gets the last word. I wish that for just one time you could stand inside my shoes, and for just one moment I could be you.
Mm. Lou, that was amazing. Thank you so very much. So I live in an eco village and I hear a mirror of one of our fireside topics from just the other day. We teach children to speak. If we're lucky, we teach adults to listen, and a few folks learn to understand. And empathy helps bridge the gap between talking at and understanding with. And it sounds like this rhetorical listening is part of that bridge. I love it. Thank you so much. It is now my pleasure to bring on Edwin Rush, the founder, director of the Empathy Center, the leader of this organization and this summit and the global empathy movement. He is a creator and longtime advocate of the Empathy Circle practice, a simple yet very powerful tool for building understanding and bridging divides. Today, he will share with us why the Empathy Circle is the foundational practice of the empathy movement.
Thanks, Kara. And I do have a slideshow, so I'm going to bring that up. And here we go. Hopefully this works. Yeah. Does that look okay? Okay.
Coming in clear.
Coming in clear. Great. Well, great. So glad to see all of you here for the new year and your interest in building the empathy movement. It's good to see old friends, new friends, and the whole community, of people who are working on this mission to really transform, our culture. And in this presentation, I wanted to make the case for why I and the Empathy Center feel that the Empathy Circle is a foundational practice of the empathy movement. And we're going to be doing an empathy circle, after this. And it's our goal at the Empathy Center actually to teach all 8 billion people in the world how to take part in and facilitate an empathy circle. So I also invite you, and I put it into the chat, there's a link there to a Google Doc, and I invite you to post your ideas in that doc on why or why not you think the empathy circle is the foundational practice of the empathy movement. So next, what is the empathy movement? And let's start with defining our terms. And the first one is the empathy movement. And this is me at the California State Capitol in our empathy tent, advocating for a culture of empathy, as part of the empathy movement. We've done that, gone out into public spaces and said, hey, we need more empathy in the world, and we're taking it to the streets. And I've discovered Google images, and Google, they call it Nano Banana. It creates infographics. I've really gone to town on creating these infographics. I hope they work. This is the first time I'm kind of trying this out. And so the empathy movement seeks to reorient, how individuals and groups relate. So we have a kind of the old way of relating, which is, authoritarian, adversarial, transactional. And we want to shift that culture to a new way, which is mutual empathy, which is based on deep dialogue and mutual collaboration. It's very much like Marie was showing with the forest, right? That we want to create, you want the whole forest, all the people, the 8 billion people to be living in a culture where of high level of empathy. And right now we have both. We have both the old way and the new way in our culture, and we really want to shift to more of the new way of relating. And we have here, the authoritarian viewpoint, which is what we have kind of in the ascendancy in the country and the world is, power over and obedience is imposed by fear versus, people working together and collaborating and really creating that power with dynamic where we have shared power and we do that through, listening to each other and connecting and seeing and understanding each other's needs. So, what is the empathy circle? I'll just give a short review of the empathy circle practice. And the empathy circle is a structured dialogue process that effectively supports meaningful and constructive dialogue. The process is based on mutual, active, empathic listening, and it's a very simple process, can be learned in about 15 minutes usually. And it creates mutual understanding and connection by just making sure that everyone feels heard and understood to their satisfaction. And we have go into some of the little bit of the nuts and bolts of how the empathy circle works. Usually it's in a smaller groups of, 3 to 7 participants, and, 4 is an ideal group. There's 4 roles, and one role is the speaker, and then there's an active listener, and then there's the silent listeners, and there's also a facilitator. If people are not familiar with the practice, it's handy to have a facilitator to hold the practice. But if you don't have, if everyone's familiar with the practice, you don't even need a facilitator. So the speaker, if someone volunteers to be the first speaker and they talk on the topic or whatever's alive for them, and they share, an idea or two, and the active listen, and then they pause, and then the active listener recaps or restates their understanding of what the speaker said and reflects the essence in their own words and or summarizes or paraphrases what was said. And then the speaker checks, did that listener understand, me and to my satisfaction? And if so, they continue speaking. And if not, they can say again what they were saying, maybe in other words. And really the goal is in this situation is for the speaker to be heard and understood to their satisfaction. And if, usually we'll have speaking terms and the speaker will speak for, maybe 5 minutes or so, but that can change. So once the speaker's time is up, they've done a couple rounds of speaking and reflection, then the roles change. When the speaker becomes the active listener, and the basic process continues on like that for, usually a circle is, 60 to 120 minutes. And that's sort of the basis of the empathy circle, and will be explained a little bit later, again, before we do the circle today. And so I was saying that the empathy circle, I feel, is the foundational practice of the empathy movement. And if you look at different, social movements, different movements have different foundational core practices. At least that's been my observation. So, for example, the civil rights movement had the core practice of nonviolent direct action. So, doing actions like sit-ins, marches, boycotts. So that was like kind of the core practice. And, there was a lot of training that went on how to do nonviolent direct action so that, when you were in a tense, confrontational situation that you didn't get triggered and, lash out when violence was directed at you. Another movement is the compassion and the mindfulness movements. And the core practice of those movements is meditation, usually expressed as loving kindness or compassion practice meditation. And so these are kind of the foundational, if you see the compassion, there's a lot out there now about the compassion movement. They've been around for a while, especially with the Dalai Lama. And, the meditation is really the core practice of those. So let's take a look at what is the core practice of the empathy movement. And I did a search on AI and asked what are the most common mentioned empathy building practices or approaches in academic and popular magazines. And this is the top empathy practices that came up in for popular magazines. The academic and popular magazines have a different rating of different practices. It's a little bit different, but this is not, isn't an exhaustive search, but just a general kind of a, thumbnail of the most mentioned practices for creating, building more empathy, build empathy building practices. So the first one is active listening, which is giving your full attention to someone. You're listening without judgment. You're tuning into others' words and their nonverbal signals. And the empathy circle is based on this mutual active listening. And that's 80% of the articles mentioned active listening as the practice to do if you want to increase your empathy level. 70% of the articles mention perspective taking. They sort of exhort you to stand in someone else's shoes, and I think Lou was talking about that, like standing in other people's shoes. Take off your own shoes, and when you do that. And then another practice. I'm just going to go through these quickly and then go into more depth afterwards. There's mindfulness and compassion, as mentioned, that they're 45 and 60% of the articles mention those as practices. And meditation is, primarily a core practice and done alone inside, one's own mind. And but those two practices are mentioned quite often. Another one is curiosity, asking questions. You're sort of exhorted to be curious, and they usually don't say, how you're supposed to be curious, how you're supposed to grow your curiosity, and they also say ask questions, and that's 45% mention that. Stepping out of your comfort zone is, about 40% of the papers, articles mention that. And that's just kind of being risk taking and trying something new, something different. And they don't really say how to sort of develop that practice. Generally, they just exhort you to do it. Then reading diverse narratives, and that's what Imogen was at the Empathy Lab was talking about. That it's a good way to increase your empathy and by standing in other, reading people's stories, personal stories, and just learning how to, what their lives are about. And then we have eye contact, emotional cues, so that when you're with someone, they give you sort of techniques for how to have eye contacts and how to read their, emotional cues, which are good in an empathy circle. You want to be able to read, people's physical cues and how they're sitting or how they're moving their body. And then volunteering, taking action. Some kind of service learning is often mentioned. And then self-compassion exercises, which I would really call self-empathy practices, connecting to your own body. It's that single tree that was in that metaphor from Marie. And let's go into these into a little bit more depth. So active listening. So the majority or the most often, mentioned practice is active listening, which I agree with. I think it's the most powerful practice and it was developed by Carl Rogers, and he developed it in a one-on-one therapy, within the therapeutic process. And this is a photo of him doing an empathic listening with the client. There's a demonstration video, which you can see on the internet. And I call this basic empathy, which is the direct sensing into the experience of another person. And in magazines, articles, they usually say, do this, and they suggest doing it with all interactions. And you're not just in a therapeutic situation, but with friends, family, but it's not really explained or a way of how to learn and practice active listening. It's not really in the articles I find. It's not really explained. So a problem I see with therapy is that it's one-way listening, or basic listening, or basic empathy, and it's not mutual like the empathy circle. Like in the empathy circle, it's, a group, and everyone is a listener and a speaker. In this case, it's just the client that's, paid client is receiving empathy, which is important, in an emergency situation, emergency empathy. But it's not really learning the client that's being listened to is not learning empathy skills that they can take into their daily relationships in life. So the empathy circle is different, and it is a way to mutually practice, learn, and deepen active listening, because everyone's an equal speaker. If I was a therapist, they would be having their turn to speak and listen as well. And this is what I call holistic empathy. And again, that holistic empathy is like the whole forest, right? There's an energy of the whole forest, which is the holistic empathy. It's just not one person being listened to, sort of in this basic empathy, way. And then, so the empathy circle, as I was saying, is based on, Roger's active listening process, basic, active empathic listening, but it's mutual. And so it really expands on that basic process. Then, we're told another is perspective taking, stand in someone else's shoes is the big metaphor you always hear. And you're told, for example, to put yourself in a homeless person's shoes. It's not really explained, usually in these articles how you practice this. It's just like you're told to do it. And there's two different forms of this perspective taking. And I call it actually imaginative empathy, because it's different quality than that direct listening to someone, where you're actually listening and you're reflecting back and sensing directly into their experience, like you do in therapy and in the empathy circle. And this is not that basic empathy, but a more imaginative form where you're stepping into someone else's situation from an imaginative form. And there's two forms of this that, academics point out. There's that you imagine yourself in someone's situation, like how would I feel, being homeless, and what would I do? And then it's sort of like having your own shoes on and stepping into someone else's shoes situation. And then the other is stepping into the other person's shoes and imagining what is the other going through as themselves, and what are they feeling, and what's their background, and kind of what's their unique situation and perspective. And again, this is different from basic empathy. I think it's two different phenomenon. In the academic world, they usually call this maybe cognitive empathy, but academic definitions of empathy are a little bit of a mess, if you ask me. So let's move on. We have mindfulness and non-judgment and compassion practice. Again, the meditation is the practice that's promoted, but this is a solo practice. You're turning in. You're sort of like the tree in the metaphor we had before. You're in your own mind. You're observing your own sensations, your own emotions, your own thoughts, and doing it in a non-judgmental way. And while this is helpful to become aware of your, thoughts and feelings, it's still not empathy in the sense that, empathy is really about more of a relational process, how we're relating to others. You bring a self to it, of course, and that's sort of where I would put in the self-empathy. And so let's see. So anyway, so meditation I don't see as the core practice of the empathy movement, because it doesn't practice that relational process like the empathy circle does. The empathy circle is really practicing that those relational skills and mindset. The next one is curiosity, asking questions, stepping out of your comfort zone. 45, 50, and 40% of the articles mention that. Uh, so this is not really, I don't know if there's any really repeatable practice for increasing these qualities like the empathy circle. And I do see the empathy circle as a container actually for nurturing these qualities. So, when you're listening to someone, you're connecting to their humanity. I find that curiosity does grow in those situations. The next one is reading literature, a pathway to uh, empathy, which I love reading, or did. Nowadays, I don't read as much stories as I did when I was younger. And you immerse yourself in stories, and you just kind of learn about different perspectives, and that can expand your empathy, skills and sensitivity. And what we've done with empathy circles, we've done book clubs where you read a book and then you come together in, a relational form, and you actually use the empathy circle to discuss books. So I think that's actually a way of combining these two practices. Looking at nonverbal cues, reading body language is a good, becoming sensitive, service learning, and self-compassion. I do think that the empathy circle, is and holistic empathy are better tools, and self-compassion, I would really make that into self-empathy. And the empathy circle, I find, while meditation, becoming aware of your body does, really help with your self-empathy. Being in an empathy circle where someone is listening to you and you're able to share, I find really helps with that self-empathy, developing that self-empathy skills. So let's look at some other benefits of the empathy circle, that make it the core practice of the empathy movement. The first one is people just don't hear about empathy in the empathy circle. They do and feel it. And we have, I think, Bill Filler is here, and he's always talking about that, just how you really feel empathy in the empathy circle. There's a lot of talks, presentations, and so forth, about empathy, be more empathic, or this is the benefits of empathy. But in the empathy circle, you're actually experiencing it. And I remember we had a big empathy advocate who took our training, empathy circle facilitation training. And afterwards, they said, I didn't realize I was not a good listener. So they're doing all this promotion of empathy, but they themselves aren't good listeners. And that's really the skill you're going to learn in the empathy circle, and actually feel it. So the empathy circles, another benefit, embody the way of being of the empathy movement. So it's sort of like a mini culture of empathy. When we bring people together, there's deep listening, shared understanding, and it creates a sort of a mini environment of the world we're trying to create. Like the sense of care increases. There's a sense of the mutuality. There's a feeling of openness, of understanding, and this basic little core that we build on is it. I find it creates a whole positive spiral of positive feelings. So with mutual empathy and mutual active listening in the empathy circle as the foundation, it leads to a feeling of safety because we mutually agree on the rules. You know what to expect. You're feeling heard and seen, and then you start feeling a sense of connection. Oh, I feel connected with these people. I'm being heard. And then that creates also a sense of care that, I matter, and I see other people's humanity or common humanity. And that leads to, when you have those feelings, you feel more comfortable, and that creates more openness. And you gain that sort of that understanding which you see the logic of their lives, like, why they're doing what they're doing. You see all the internal connections that they have, that map of who they are. And it creates more feelings of trust, like, hey, I'm safe here. Even if I disagree, I will be heard and understood, to my satisfaction. And that creates a foundational, basis for creativity and innovation. And that's, also, it just creates a more mutual well-being. So another benefits is the empathy circle can be used in many situations. So you can do it in your family. And I've done it in my family, and I have regular little empathy buddy, one-on-one empathic listening sessions with my partner. You can use it in work. So if you want to transform those work environments, bring in the empathy circle. You can do it with your friends. You can do it with the greater community, like we're doing here in the summit. Bring it into the education, environment or religious institutions, or it's just, very good for people in conflict as well. So it can really be applied, in all different kinds of situations. And so in that case, it's a scalable, very scalable practice. And the empathy circle I see is also a gateway to deepening empathy-based practices. And sort of, I see it as sort of a boot camp, like, right, the military, you go to boot camp, everybody takes part in it, you learn some basic skills. And those skills, you can take into any of the therapeutic, contexts. You can, that those skills and that mindset and those attitudes will apply to any of the therapeutic practices. And then there's also for example, Roger's person-centered approach, his therapeutic approach, but any of the other ones too. Then there's also like Gene Genlin's focusing, if you're familiar with that process. They show just one person here, but you can also do it with multiple people doing, using active listening with each other. And then there's Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication, the empathy circle. A lot of people talk about it. It's an easy way to, as an entry into NVC, that it's easier, it's like cheaper, and you can bring those skills into that practice. There's motivational interviewing, which is from William Miller. He created that process for empowering change in people. There's a conflict mediation practices. It'll be helpful for that. If you're familiar with Dominic Barter's restorative circles, it's a gateway to that. If you're wanting to do political work, we have citizens' assemblies and people's assemblies, sort of democratic dialogue and making decision making. The empathy circle is going to help you with that, as well as for human-centered design, which is a way of using empathy for creativity and innovation. So the empathy circle I see as a foundation for all of these other empathy building practices, and they can build on the skills that you learned there. So the empathy circle, I just added this here because of bridging political polarization through the power of feeling heard. That we have a real situation here in the United States and everywhere in the world with this growing polarization. And one of the core issues with polarization is that people who don't feel heard, they start to get more extreme in their in how they react. So if you feel excluded, you just start yelling louder, and you become more radical so that you're heard. And if you bring people, and we've done it from both sides of the political spectrum together into an empathy circle, everyone gets heard to their satisfaction, and it creates a safe environment, and it really can build connection. The other benefit, I see the empathy circle is a bit like a gym, that there's this notion in neuroscience that neurons that fire together wire together. So if you do the actions like in the empathy circle, listening, reflecting, and the more you do it, the more those neurons wire together, that pathway that for that sort of a mindset. And so it's a bit of an empathy gym for rewiring your brain. You know, you're taking out judgment, you're taking out the things that block empathy, and you're creating those neural pathways. And another, I'm just adding a bunch here, is empathy circles recharges our emotional reserves. So I know from myself, if I haven't been heard for a while or seen, I start feeling, depleted, defensive, reactive, or, lonely, disconnected. And when I've been heard and seen, I feel more grounded, and I don't get triggered as easily, and I have more space to listen to others. And I know one person mentioned how after doing the empathy circle, she went and talked with her father, and usually she gets really triggered, by kind of their relationship. But after doing the empathy circle, getting her empathy battery filled, she had a lot more space for listening to him. And so a quick review. So empathy circle benefits. It's a low friction practice to kind of get the ball rolling. There's no prerequisites, no degrees, no special training. You can learn fairly easy. You can't take our training though. It's cost free. It's open. You're not going to, there's no barrier to entry there. It's highly reproducible, as we were showing. You can use it in a lot of different situations. It's a gateway practice. It's going to be a foundational skill that you can use in a lot of different situations. You can really have it in a lot of different situations. And above all, empathy circles feel damn good. It just feels good to take part in meaningful and constructive dialogues. It's just like it feels good, for me to be here in this empathy summit with all of you. It just feels good to be kind of in all of your presence and knowing that we're working towards the same, positive, goal. And it also feels good, to be able to fully express oneself and feel good, feel heard. It feels good to listen to someone else and, contribute to their well-being. I mean, I really enjoy that, just knowing that I've contributed to someone's well-being. And it feels good, just to see the common humanity. So in the circle, I really start seeing, who the people are and just how they're so much just like me. And it's just, we all have this common humanity. And bring it back again to Rogers, who said, when someone really hears you without passing judgment on you, without trying to take responsibility for you, without trying to mold you, it feels damn good. I just love that statement there. And let's see, we have a call to action. Don't want to leave without a call to action. We want to train all 8 billion people in the world how to take part in and facilitate a circle. And and we also want to train trainers to train facilitators. So we want to do that. That's another thing. And, we also want to create a more extensive empathy movement curriculum. So we hope you'll join us in that. And so as the next step, you can start taking part in our Empathy Circle Facilitator training. That's the next one starts in 2 weeks. And this is an image that I converted from one of our past cohorts. We had it was a really great cohort, wonderful cohort. And we have 4 of these trainings lined up. And if you go to, bestempathytraining.com, you'll find the link to this to how to sign up. And with that, I think that's it. I'm going to bring Kara back on. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We were talking about that spiral of positive feelings, and I'm finding myself getting really emotional today in that my heart is so full that it wants to leak out my eyes kind of way. This
Big
is such
hug.
a simple practice. Thank you. And the spectrum of applications that we've seen just today is it's exquisite. The movement is moving. And what I know about Newtonian physics is that an object in motion likes to stay in motion. So we're just going to keep being in motion. And I'm going to bring up Jonathan Gordon to come talk to us about let's do some empathy circles.
You're muted, Jonathan.
Thank you so much, Kara. And thank you, Edwin, for your presentation. And I also want to thank our guest speakers. So first of all, I'm going to post in the chat a summit feedback form. And so we'd like everyone to give us your thoughts in the feedback. And I'm going to remind everyone that the application Zoom doesn't save the chat automatically. So what I'd like everyone to do is to save your chat before you exit today, because there's a lot of valuable information, and it also has the contact information of all of our speakers today. So now we're getting ready to do the breakout rooms and practice a empathy circle. So if you've done the training, I'd like all of our experienced trainers to add a ECF to your name. And Edwin is going to be working on setting up the rooms and assigning the facilitators. And I wanted you to note in your name change, the guests here today, that if you don't want to be recorded in a breakout room, put a little NR after your name. And now I'm going to, while Edwin is setting up the breakout rooms, I'm going to give you a little introduction to our to the empathy circle process. Our topics are wonderful in that I guess the most important topic we have is whatever is on your heart or mind. In other words, just feel free to talk about what you'd like to talk about. The obvious topic today is to talk about what we learned, is to talk about everything that was shared with us in the presentations today. Now, our circles tend to be about 3 to 5 participants. And when you get in your circle, the facilitator will introduce themselves. And often we have time to do a quick round of introductions, and that's to test your microphone and to make sure that your name is pronounced correctly. There are 4 roles in the empathy circle. There's a facilitator, a speaker, an active listener, and silent listeners. The speaker, the facilitator starts out by being an active listener and picks one of the people attending to speak. And the speaker speaks in small chunks, in other words, maybe a sentence or two, and then pauses so that the active listener can reflect back what was said. And if the speaker doesn't feel heard or doesn't feel the reflection is accurate, they can make corrections during their turn. And most importantly, when the speaker is done speaking, it's very welcome for you to tell the active listener that they feel heard, or that you feel things are complete in your turn. Now, an active listener, in their own words, or sometimes using the speaker's words, they literally reflect back what they heard the speaker say. Now, it's very important that this is not a dialogue, and so you refrain from asking questions. You refrain from advising, sympathizing, judging, agreeing, or disagreeing. The role is simply to reflect what the speaker said. And once the speaker reports that they have been heard, or you see the timing signal that the facilitator supplies, then it becomes your turn to be the speaker, and you pick an active listener. So everyone else in the circle, while they're waiting for their turn, they're called a silent listener. And this is a very active role because you want to pay attention and be present to hear what is being exchanged between the speaker and the active listener. And also, we want the silent listeners to not be distracting. In other words, don't be futzing around. Don't be well. Don't interrupt and say things in the middle of this. So you want to be very, very respectful and follow the conversation and wait for your turn. Now, the last person in the role, the last role is the facilitator. And the facilitator will be keeping time. Many of the facilitators will be using a digital clock. When I do the facilitation, I'm kind of old school, and I use a little sign that I wave. But the timing is just for you to be aware that you've used up your time. And so if you're speaking, you want to still finish your thought. And of course, the reflective listener or the active listener gets a chance to reflect. And so don't panic if you see the timer. Complete the conversation. The timing for the turns, usually the facilitator will suggest it. It could be 3 minutes, it could be 4 minutes, it could be 5 minutes, depending upon the size of the circle. And sometimes we'll do one round, say at 4 minutes, and then as the ending time gets closer, maybe they'll switch. The facilitator will suggest switching to 3-minute turns. And Edwin, how are we doing on our breakout rooms?
Keep talking. I'm working at it.
Okay. Well, I certainly can't beat Edwin's wonderful graphics and illustrating the principles of empathy circles. And I must say, I've been doing empathy circles for about 2 years now, and I really look forward to our cafe. We have a Thursday cafe each Thursday at 6 o'clock Pacific time, and it really lets me recharge my batteries. I know that during the presentation, there were a couple of mentions of how the empathy circles are restorative. And I really think they are. I immerse myself in a circle and I forget about all of the problems around me. And I just enjoy the common humanity, and I enjoy just being present with no particular agenda. It's just so lovely to hear people talk to each other. And one of the greatest things, which was not mentioned, and I'm going to mention it, is the generative function. And when I say generative, it's wonderful. You get into an empathy circle, someone brings up a new topic that you never thought of, and it just excites everyone present. And all of a sudden, everyone's talking about that topic. And that's called a generative topic. And this is so wonderful to create change when there are groups, community groups that come together. And I'll give an example that I participated in. It was called participatory budgeting. And our city of Vallejo had money that was raised by a special tax
I'm ready. I'm ready.
incentive,
Mhm.
and they brought together the citizens of the community into little circles, very similar to empathy circles, and the community decided how to spend the money. And it was a wonderful experience where we brought together the community and they decided how to act. Thank you, Edwin. I guess we're ready to go.
Okay. Do you want to put the question? Is that in the chat yet?
I'll see if I have.
Question was just you just any insights from the presentations and how to build the empathy movement and whatever is on your mind. We have an hour and 10 minutes in the circle, so we closing at 10 after the hour, and we'll come back to the full group. And I think can everybody unmute? Just make sure that we have. Are you able to everyone? If you do unmute, are you able to unmute? I don't know if there is a setting for that. Can everybody try unmuting before I put you into the? You're able to. Okay, great. Didn't want it to be locked. And so we're going to go into the circles. The first one, Jana will be facilitating. The second one, Jonathan. Bill will do the next one. Ben Kramer, are you familiar with the empathy circle, how to facilitate? I see you say
Yes.
that
Yeah.
you've done the training. Okay, great. Then you'll facilitate. Ingrid will facilitate 5, and Daniel will facilitate 6. There'll be someone else. I think Sally LaFaux is a facilitator, and a couple of facilitators in your group. But Daniel, if you could facilitate or pass it on to someone else. So here we go. We're going to all go into our breakout rooms and see you there. And here we go. Okay. And I'm going to go join the group.
Okay.
1, and I'll try to move these other. Nita, why?
Martin. Hi, Martin. Welcome.
My camera off. Okay, so I'll facilitate. I was going to offer to if you wanted to, but I guess Edwin. Oh, Edwin.
No, go ahead. I'm going to be doing technical stuff here.
You're doing technical stuff in room 1?
I'm going to be part of this, but I'm also going to keep an eye on everything. So if you want to facilitate, or Terry, it's up to you.
I see. Okay. Here, let me see if I can get the timer up. I'll use the
Edwin, I just mentioned I'm out walking, so I'm not
Oh.
going to facilitate today.
Okay.
I'm going to use the
Thank
Zoom
you, though.
timer. So, Brian, do you have experience with empathy circles? And Jill, are you new to this practice?
No, they don't have ECF, so just go ahead and do it, Jana.
Yeah, no, I wasn't asking if you want to facilitate, but do you need any more
Oh.
explanation or have any questions, or can we just
No,
go ahead
no
and start?
questions.
No questions. Okay. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us, 4-minute turns, okay? I don't remember what. So I'll be the first listener, and who would like to be the first speaker? Volunteer to be the first speaker?
I can go.
You'd like to be the first speaker? Okay. And you can talk about whatever's in your heart and mind, or anything you heard, or anything you shared, whatever you like. Yeah. Go ahead.
I like being around so many people interested in empathy. I did a really intense, kind of spontaneous because it was needed, conflict resolution session last night with people who were in my house, my son and his friend, and it was the different. I won't go into all the different pieces of it, but it reminded me of Bell Hooks talking about like the practice of love and community. And so for like a couple of like days, there were people in our house my son and his really good friend and a super dear friend of mine from 30 plus years ago, and who said he felt comfortable in our house, which is huge because I heard him say out loud he's never felt comfortable anywhere. And I see how he gets targeted as an outspoken, confident Black man. So that really touched my heart.
So I'm going to ask you to pause so I can reflect a little bit and then.
Can I just say one more thing? Because it kind of ties it all together. It might make
Sure,
you.
okay. And then if I miss something, that you just help me.
Sure. What's going on is that now everybody is gone. And it's just me and my partner. And I just really miss being around people that I love on a daily basis.
So you're appreciating this summit and you're appreciating being with people who are practicing empathy or working on themselves and listening to each other as best they can. And you shared that last night you did an impromptu conflict resolution between your son and his friend. And um, and that you've had a house full of people the last few days, if I understood. And I think it was your son's friend who, the last couple of.
Yeah, just a couple days of people in the house full. It's not a big house, so it's pretty full.
So you had a full house, and it was your son's friend who said that he felt really comfortable in the house.
My friend, but yeah.
Your friend felt
Yeah.
really comfortable in the house and acknowledged and heard. And he was a Black person, a Black man who felt very welcome and and seen and heard. And I really appreciated your family. And now people are gone. It's you and your partner, and you're feeling like an empty nester, I guess, kind of missing.
I'm feeling sad, because it makes me realize how much I want community and people I love to be part of my daily life and not just a special occasion that requires airplanes and long trips to pick people up and massive arrangements.
So you're feeling sad. You're feeling this sadness that you're recognizing how much you really want people in your life, like on a regular basis, and not some occasional like event, where it involves travel and planning and yeah, and you'd like more community in your life. So you're recognizing that need and that wish.
Thank you. I feel heard.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for sharing. So I'm the first listener. I'm the listener, and now I become the next speaker. So I'm going to ask someone to be my speaker. So I'm supposed to choose a speaker, but I don't want to choose anyone who doesn't feel comfortable. Listener is what I meant. Thank you. So Lou, would you like to listen to me?
Sure. I'm happy to listen to you, Janet. Go ahead.
So it's just a real joy to be at this summit and to have both of you speakers here and more people who will discover here. And it's just, I love empathy circles.
You're inspired, and you're happy to be here. And
yeah, thank you. And when you spoke, I actually had the thought, I don't know if you've ever been to Dharma teachings. If you've heard like Tibetan teachers
Dharma.
speak.
I heard the word Dharma.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, and one of the wonderful gifts of the teacher, it said that when one becomes a Buddha, the speech comes last. That when, has maybe ethical behavior and good motivation, but it's the actual speech that comes last. It's like the crowning jewel of the Buddha.
Okay. So work on a bunch of stuff. Integrity, like you say, all the practices, and then speaking comes up the back end. And so there.
And so one of the gifts of the teachers that when they speak is that everyone, it is said, has the experience of being spoken to directly, regardless of what level they are.
Mhm.
And so when you talked about rhetorical speech, I that was what I was reminded of.
So the speaker, in effect, creates a miracle that because everyone to who the speaker is addressing feels or believes or thinks it's one on one, that the speaker's talking right to him. Whereas
Yeah,
could be an enormous diversity there.
right. Regardless of their level, that it's suitable for all levels. That every talk is suitable for all levels, and everyone is seen. You know, everyone is acknowledged. Everyone, yeah.
Well, like you say, there's beginner, intermediate, advanced. That's somebody's idea of levels, because you get to be you practice, and then you arrive at a beginner's mind. And regardless of the level, the audience feels they're being addressed one on one.
Yeah, so the example of rhetorical speech reminded me of that. And so thank you. I feel heard. Thank you.
All right. So, um, right. So I get to pick somebody to be my listener, right? I get to pick somebody to be my listener. Well, I've got so many excellent choices here. How about Brian? I'm gonna go with you, Brian. You can be my listener. And
Okay.
thank you. And here's what I have to say. I I can't figure out how to update my profile to put speaker or remove. There are some things I'm not comfortable having recorded. So I'm not
Mhm.
going to, rather than try to fix that right now, I'm just not going to talk about those, because they're about my neighbors, and it's unlikely that they would tune in and hear it. But confidentiality is important, and don't tell. So I have to pick something. So I'm struggling with that. I've got
Do,
plenty to talk about, and I
do,
don't want it to be recorded.
Edwin, do you want to pause the video? No, he doesn't want to pause the
All right.
video.
So keep
Okay.
that in mind
So,
next time. There's stuff I don't want to talk about because I'll be talking about people. It make a observation and not a judge. I'm going to pause here for a breath.
So Brian, you can reflect on now.
It's okay.
um,
Brian gets to respond to
yeah,
that.
it's what I'm hearing is that perhaps you feel a bit of frustration in that you're not able to really express your heart as you're feeling right now. That, yeah, is that about right?
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make enemies. I'm already
Sure.
fighting with these people, and I don't want to, I don't want to have a fight in public. Um,
Well, certainly, yeah, that is especially in this day.
Part of our human experience.
and we'll just include that. Thank
Yeah.
you. So here's what I'm going to talk about.
Okay.
I found something that, I like the prompt. What are your ideas and projects for building the empathy movement? Here's the most confronting thing I can think of. No money, no mission.
No money, no mission. Are we taking that from, say, business basics or?
Thank you. I mean, you're not allowed to ask questions, but that's a good question.
Okay.
I make a mess of it. I mean, you see how I make a mess of this thing. And that's the whole point. Don't be too, this is an advanced group. Don't be too crazy about it. I heard that was the former president of DePaul University speaking on, not-for-profit or on not-for-profit organizations with many colleges and universities, right? So here's the empathy. I mean, empathy circles and listening, it's basic. This is 101. You don't get it. I mean, this is like you say, like meditation to Dharma training. That's empathy circles. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to try to charge money for it. I mean, because it'd be like charging money for having a conversation, which includes how do you charge money for taking turns? No, I mean, there's a thought, there's a complete thought.
Yes, that feels so right to me as
Yeah.
well.
And you got
So
it.
yes,
Yeah.
so I think what I hear is that you feel then a conflict with that sense and building a movement, given the Paul comment.
Well, thank you. I mean, here's what I would say, because I'm really scratching my head, right? I mean, I meant it when I said, really the problem in my life is my name is not Tony Scruggs. He's too bad he's not here to hear me, but I already said it. He brings an enthusiasm and a kind of humor, right, to it. And then he's got something important to say. When people are being confrontational, XYZ sucks, man. Okay, because I got a lot of that in the stuff I'm not talking about, right? That I decide I don't want to put on the internet. The XYZ sucks is coming, and so what I want to say is maybe I don't know what I want to say. I'm sorry. Can you help me? What am I trying to say?
Well, yeah, to me it feels as though you're looking for a way to take just human conversations, human interactive warmth,
Yeah.
and how do we construct a movement from that? You're addressing the question, which I think is wonderful, because frankly, it feels we've missed it all morning. So you are looking at what does it take to create a movement, and you're, I think, hinting at the idea that money is involved, enthusiasm, and so on, motivation.
Yeah.
Right? Money is the most common motivator in our society. I would go out on a limb and say, but that's what we're really looking at, money. I mean, motivation.
Okay. Well, I'm getting a time's up here. And here's the thought. Can I ask for a 1 minute extension?
Yes.
Okay.
Go
Here's the
ahead. It's
thought.
not a hard stop.
Thank you. Here's the thought. If one has empathy circles are going to have to be given away, in effect. Before I would engage with a consultant, with a client in a consulting engagement, I would in effect give them a free sample. We would have a conversation. And if they found value in the conversation, at some point, there would be what is sometimes called an upsell. An upsell. You would say, well, if you want to, I got to keep the light. What I would say is how much, here's what I would say. Here's the 1 minute extension. How much is it worth to you? I mean, like money, to continue this conversation in a structured way. And then they would say, 20 bucks, or they would say, what I would say, well, that's not enough. I need 100, I mean, and then they would do it or not, right? I mean, they could say yes or no or negotiate. And so that's actually the proposal. If you've got something to offer, make the request. But it would probably not be empathy circle training, because that's the foundation, right? I mean, there would be the advanced course. What does the advanced course look like now? Well, that would mean you have
Time.
to
You
talk.
got to keep to the time.
Thank you. I made my point. Thank you.
So you want to briefly reflect, or I'll briefly reflect what you said, Lou? Brian, do you want to briefly reflect what you heard without any additions? Just
Yes, that we are here gathered for how to build an empathy movement. We've discussed the fine points of empathy and how to make a person feel heard. I'm guessing on the last that yet we have not talked about how to build a movement to spread the listening, the care that is behind empathy.
Thank you.
to how to make it sustainable and how to offer it, and to offer it for free, at least initially, at an advanced level. Yeah. All right. So, Brian, you're the next speaker, and you can choose your listeners. So choose someone who hasn't listened yet, and then we can choose from anyone. So Terry, if she's available, or Edwin.
Okay,
if he's
Terry.
available.
Hi. I like the tree. So, yes.
And in chunks.
In chunks. My chunk is very short. I only have one. I think I agree with Lou completely in that We have had a tremendous session. Thank you all to all you speakers. Hearing the depth of empathy and how to express it deeply so that people feel heard, so that they feel cared for and loved even, that is wonderful. And, it's so great to be among you thinkers who have identified the paths for doing that. But again, I agree with Lou, today's topic, how do we build a movement? Frankly,
May I
maybe
ask
I
you, Brian,
wasn't
to pause?
listening.
Brian, may I
Sure,
ask you to pause
pause.
so I can? Thank you. I think I'm hearing that today you've received a contribution about, being part of and growing the culture of empathy that has really filled your heart.
Yes, I feel my heart has really expanded and filled with the wonderful thoughts that everyone has expressed.
Mm.
However, my core feeling is frustration that I have not understood empathy and its power to the extent that I have now, thanks to all that I've heard. But I do know it's important. It's extremely important. I think that is what our culture most needs to get through this very dark time. Yet I don't feel that I have heard a whole lot of words that speak to how we're going to do it. And so I greatly appreciate Lou bringing up that topic.
Yeah, okay. So I'm hearing like the depth of appreciation for what you've received and also a resonance with Lou bringing up the topic of like, how is this actually going to work? And also that you are carrying a frustrated charge around it. It's an intensity maybe that matches the need for this to spread.
Yes, yes, yes. I think that if there was one word to offer that is the most needed in our culture right now, it is empathy. And it is the most lacking. Not only is it lacking, um, people are arguing that even in Christian circles, saying it is a sin. This is mind-boggling to me. It's very frustrating. And as professionals in this space, why are we not talking about how to, storm the gates, how to make it happen? And Lou pointing out to money and so on. So, that's, I think, the topic du jour that should be how to build a movement. What does it take? It takes motivation. People who feel not heard are motivated to go join a circle. Is that how we start a movement? I don't know. I think, we need the sociological concept of common knowledge. That is, when you go to a protest, you see thousands of others who feel the same
Brian,
way,
may I
are
ask you to
saying,
pause? I'm not going to be able to reflect if you keep talking. Thank you so much.
okay,
Well,
sorry.
I hear passion in your thinking about this, I think, and that in terms of what's present in the culture, that the most important response, in your estimation, is actually empathy. However, it's being you're not hearing how to actually move forward with making that response as as equal to the other things that are going on that aren't empathy.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you,
Yes,
Brian.
the mechanics of a movement.
You wanna know the nitty gritty of the mechanics of how does this work?
Of how to launch a movement. I've heard about the dynamics of how we would then empathize each with one another and the power and so on, but I've not heard one word on how to make it a movement.
You are wanting to hear specific words on how to make this a movement?
That was the time. So, Terry?
Thank you, Edwin. Edwin, would you please be my listener? Are
Yep.
you available?
I'm listening.
Thank you. Excuse me, thank you. Well, I'm sitting here with my dog and she's in training, but she might bark. So
You're kind of warning us that your dog might bark there.
yeah, I'm wanting to get her on camera here because she is so cute. Ella, Ella, watch me. See if you can see her. Can you see her?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You want to get
Ella,
the
watch
dog
me.
on the camera because it's so cute.
It's really cute. Um, I I really loved listening to, and I think it's Lou. I can't really see everybody's name, but I'm remembering. I love words and definitions, and rhetorical empathy is super fun to hear about.
Yeah, you're appreciating Lou talking about the rhetorical empathy, and because he loves those words and definitions, things like that.
Yeah, and I love him too.
Yeah, you love it too.
Yeah, and I do have a rhetorical empathy practice, although I didn't know that's what it was called. But I love fooling around with how I use the words.
Mm. Yeah, so you're using those rhetorical empathy too. You kind of play around with it with those terms,
I I
words.
do. Yeah, and I'm not going to go into like all the things I've noticed because I want to talk about what's emerging in my own practice of building a culture of empathy.
And you're going to talk personally about what's happening in your practice of empathy.
Yes, I am a vagal toning instructor, and that's a somatic practice that helps people to light up the part of the nervous system that's involved in social engagement.
So you're a vagal tone practitioner. So yeah.
Yeah, and it makes the heart warm, the face mask. There's some responsivity that comes back into the face, the voice, and this is also the empathy system.
Mhm. So the vagal system and the empathy system are the same, and it's a practice that you do that kind of warms up your body, your face, and like your
Yeah,
heart and area.
yeah. And it makes you like socially responsive both to yourself and to others. Brings that
Mm.
back online.
Mm.
Where it
Yeah.
kind of like dials down the defenses.
Mm-hmm. So this practice sort of lowers the defensiveness and brings up the sort of the connecting, social connecting qualities.
Yeah, and I'm a level 3 facilitator, and in the last training I did, I was struck by the power of the mini empathy circle that's part of the training.
And you do a empathy circle, or you're struck by the sort of the power of the the mini empathy circle that's part of your training.
Yeah, of the training that the Empathy Center offers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Hmm.
so really appreciate the training.
Yeah, it's fewer people in the mini circle and a shorter time.
Mm. Yeah, so it's the qualities of the shorter time and less people in the circle.
And I love the regular circle too, but I realized that the mini circle is perfect for after vagal toning.
So this is something you can use with your vagal toning work, and so it sounds like some excitement about that, like an insight that you're celebrating
I am, and I've been doing it, and people are agog at the effects.
and having great effects. People are really responding to that in your training, sounds like.
Right,
Mm.
right. And just to like try to wrap up in the time. So, I can charge a lot of people for a vagal toning class. And that just takes one person, and people can teach all kinds of classes and teach a lot of people at once. But what I'm doing is I'm working towards expansion and adding other facilitators for the mini circle. So we keep it to four. So if there's, for theoretically 100 people in a class, 25 facilitators, four people in each breakout room. Um, that's my model going forward for this year.
Mm-hmm. So you've got a model with your training that you're going to be taking however many people you have in your workshop and dividing into empathy circles, and you're kind of excited about the just the practice and the response and the outcome of it.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the sustainability anymore. I'll just leave it there. Thank you
Mm.
so much,
Yeah.
Edmund. Thank you, everyone.
So maybe responding to what others were saying, you weren't worried about the sustainability of it, financial sustainability. Okay, I'll speak to Jill, if I may. Yeah, I appreciate what Brian was saying about not hearing how do we build the movement, per se. So I think that's important. And um, I think one thing from my sense is that the empathy community hasn't been thinking in terms of movement building, like a bigger movement. It's been thinking more individually. So I think one step is just to get people to thinking that, hey, this is a movement. We need to, think in terms of how do we raise the level of empathy in society. So that's just like the first step.
So are you wanting to, like, your flag where your attention is that this idea of creating a movement has a beginning, and we are at the beginning. And I'm guessing you're maybe wanting some patience for that, a sense of shared reality of where we are in that process.
Yeah, maybe clarity, have a sense of
Clarity.
clarity, and that just that individualism. I mean, you think empathy, even, is it's taught like in therapy and so forth. It's an individualistic sort of there's a lot of individualism within the empathy movement, which, I want, individual needs is important. I think Marie and Roy was talking about that. But you also want to think in terms of the bigger picture. And I think that's what we need to, even getting people to think in those terms is a first step. And that's what these empathy circles are about, is getting people to even think in those terms.
So when you look around, you're seeing just how rampant is this individualism that we're all acculturated into, and how that's kind of our default. And you really want to somehow seed our collective consciousness with this notion of a bigger picture of a we. And you're seeing empathy circles as a way to kind of commence that, or to plant those seeds.
Yeah, it's more the empathy movement.
The
I
empathy
mean, people
movement.
haven't been talking about empathy movement. We're sort of the ones that are sort of waving that banner. The empathy movement. Let's start thinking in terms of empathy movement, people. And so we're kind of at that early stage and
Mhm.
trying to, don't just not about you as an individual. It's about working together, and that we're working on the same direction. We have this same goal.
So you're really
So.
wanting to try and have some companionship in making that perspective shift, that linguistic shift, so we can start to think together about this movement.
Mhm. And then in terms of a strategy, maybe I'll talk about it next time. I think we need like an occupy empathy. So use the same techniques, of nonviolent direct action and occupy, where we have the empathy tent experience, so that we go out and we actually occupy space, like we did in Berkeley, like the Berkeley, the Civic Center Park, those occupy encampment. But it's an empathy movement. It's not like the 99 against the 1%. It's like everybody's invited,
Mm-hmm.
and we create a counterculture. So that's
Mm.
one sort of major strategy that I'm thinking about.
So I'm hearing you nurturing this vision of something really exciting that everyone can be invited to, and kind of like a big tent of joining the sympathy movement. Is that close?
Yeah, and we set up, and the space is doing ongoing empathy circles, 24/7
Mm.
empathy circles, plus other practices. So Terry brings her vagal training. You have, so it's sort of a counterculture, a
Mhm.
counter. Um, you know that it's creating, embodying that, but in an encampment like Occupy
Mm.
did, but not us
Mm.
versus
Mhm.
them like Occupy was.
Sort of subverting, using the gestalt, but subverting the intention into something more inclusive and more joyful, more kind, more enveloping.
Yeah, yeah, I feel heard. It's my
Okay.
time. So you can pick your listener, Joe.
I already went, remember?
We keep
And
going.
no, we keep going. We just keep
Oh
We
my
going
have
round
gosh.
and round. It's a circle.
45 minutes almost.
Oh gosh. Okay. Terry, you want to go again?
I'm listening, Jill.
Okay. Um, I'm feeling a little kid in me is kind of a little bit like, wait, what? I heard a couple of people saying, but nobody talked about how to do this, and I don't know if they weren't there for my presentation. That was what all of what I talked about was how to scale empathy digitally. Like, what am I, chopped liver? Or we're going to channel my ancestors. a little bit confused and sad and wanting to be seen for the actual proposal that I did make. Well, what I actually doing. It's not just a proposal, it's an app that I'm developing.
Mm-hmm. Is there like just some confusion present and maybe like some bewilderment and a little bit of hurt and a need to be seen?
Yeah, like I also wanting to know if maybe what I'm doing is being seen as this sort of other capitalist thing and not exactly what's being looked for.
And you're an
I
activist.
don't know. I could understand if that were the case. And I also do want to be seen. I want to know how I can communicate. Yeah, maybe I want some information about how I could communicate better, so that what we're doing at Menfold lands as with the intended effect of scaling empathy.
And you're an app developer of Mental, and your whole presentation was actually on how to scale empathy, but you're wondering now if just the way you're presenting it is seeming like it's actually rather outside the movement because it is a part of a system that includes finance. Is that what you said?
That includes what?
Like financial concern? Is that?
Yeah, I don't like. I'm confused about why and how it didn't land with anyone here as something that we're doing to scale empathy. So I guess I have a request too that later. I don't want to detract from the form of what we're doing right now, but later maybe tell me why and how that didn't land for you that way, whether you didn't hear the presentation or it just seemed like something else.
Yeah, you're requesting feedback as to why your presentation that included granular information on how to scale empathy wasn't received as somebody talking about how to do that.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that's all I have to say. I don't see the timers, but I could do a little song and dance. Or we could just give the time.
You have another minute. It's on my window there.
You're not sure if you have more to say, but it occurs to you that you might just sing and dance.
I just smelled something downstairs. I'm guessing that my husband is baking a croissant, which I don't want to eat, for in terms of nutritional concerns, but it smells really good. What are you saying? What you're saying, Evan? Damn good.
The smell of croissant baking is just a very enticing smell, but not something you're going to actually act on in terms of ingesting.
Probably. Maybe I'll take that, like the little corner of it, That's it.
Maybe just the most choice bit.
Yeah.
You can just say, I feel heard, and then it's your end. Yeah.
I feel heard, and then it's my end.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Terry.
Lou, actually, I'm wondering, is there, Janet, I know you're probably keeping track. I'd like to help co-hold the mutuality. Do you have a suggestion for me?
It's fine. Brian's gone once. I've gone once. Lou's gone once, I think.
Okay.
And Edwin's gone once, and so you have
I heard my name. I mean, is there a request? I heard my name.
Yeah, I did. Thank you, Jana. Lou, I would like for you to please listen to me.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you. I'm listening.
Thank you. Well, it's just I just noticed it's such a joy and a pleasure to be in this room with everybody here today.
You're experiencing joy and pleasure and are happy to be here. And
I am, yeah. I'm really excited that Jill's here because I try not to look at Facebook much, but I found her on there the other day because I was looking at the speaker lineup and I friended her.
I mean, you friended Jill on Facebook. I mean, hey.
Yeah, and now here she is. Yeah, so that's a delight because I really am very literally not on Facebook much. In fact, I have an app to make it so I can't go on Facebook because it's just it's too much for my nervous system to be exposed to it on a regular basis.
You're a very light touch, if at all, on Facebook.
Yeah, and this brings me to like a theme that I've had today, which is just like allowing things to occur.
Hmm. Being present with what's so, allowing things to occur.
Yeah, Ingrid, I've been in circles with Ingrid for the last year frequently. Ingrid Hertz. And one time she was on a kick of like, well, the empathy circle movement will grow because we're intending for it to grow.
I see. Ingrid's Ingrid's expressing optimism and confidence about empathy circles spontaneously growing.
Yeah, she was like, yeah, that's happening because we're doing it.
As you say, just as you say.
Yeah, and then I'm like, okay, well, the evidence for me today is that Jill's in my breakout room. And I was like so excited to learn about her app and to see the level of skillfulness that she's bringing to this. And just like, I mean, just a brief little look at what she's doing. And I was like, wow, she is really putting some powerful tools to work. And I'm excited to connected
So
to her. And here she is.
being inclusive is working. Even notwithstanding the limitations of Facebook, here is Jill Nagel, and you also
Yeah.
acknowledge your contribution in the matter of the Mendful app.
Yeah, the Mendful app. And I'm also like, I'll tell you, the last 2 years, coming to be a vagal toning teacher online came with it a great deal of trepidation for me.
Hmm.
It's a risky venture. I had major health concerns. Yeah, I was not at all sure that the risks I was taking were going to provide the kind of security that I need.
So you were and are up to something in your life, bringing the vagal toning training online, and notwithstanding some health concerns, you're engaged. The so to say, the engagement is joined.
Yeah, and what I've learned along the way is it's not just me building the empathy movement. It's in line with the force of life, and I can allow that to flow in ways that my conditioning didn't teach me, but that those here and many others in this world are modeling in like a multitude of ways if I tune in and observe and resonate with what's happening in terms of expansion of love, consciousness, and practice on this planet.
So what you're doing, whatever it is working, and you're going to continue to do that. Um,
Yeah, thanks. I feel just a real presence and ease and peacefulness in my body, and my legs
I
are
see.
here. My whole self is here. Thank you, Lou. Thanks for listening.
But so you feel present, and you're relaxed, you're chill.
Yeah.
You got there's some chill happening here. We
Yep. You.
So I get to pick somebody. Thank you for letting me listen to you, um, Terry. And I get to pick somebody to listen to me. And how about, I mean, eeny, meeny, miny, ever you can't miss here. I'll go with Edwin. How about you?
Okay, hi, listening.
Thank you. So I'm going to continue with what I had before. I still don't want to criticize on camera my neighbors with whom I'm mixing it up. So I'll talk. So that's a thought.
Yeah, you don't want to criticize your neighbors here on camera.
So here's the challenge. I take it on. I I believe that the empathy movement has legs. I wouldn't be here if I didn't. And I don't think the challenge that at least one speaker laid down, I think it might have been Brian, is like, let's have more. we need more. I don't know if the word is need, but it'd be useful to have more structure. I want to hear more practical suggestions. And I heard that as kind of a request or maybe even a demand for more.
And you want to have more, so practical tools for building a movement?
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to continue the theme of no money, no mission. That empathy circles are basic, they're fundamental. You and it is a challenge that one cannot charge to have a conversation with another human being. This is like I have read, you're talking about, well, there's a lot of things I could say. And here's the thing. Maybe I should just have free speech and go with it. And part of the solution has actually been proposed by Jill and Menful and Terry and vagal training. The vagus nerve is a big nerve and it touches a lot of things. I mean, this is kind of, it's not pop neurology, although I know a little pop neurology, and so it's that one slide that you, Edwin, had where it has empathy circles get baked into a lot of activities in design, in therapy, in this case, vagal training, in the other case, applications for conflict resolution. So that's a complete thought, which I will summarize my own thought. A lot of empathy work gets rolled up into conflict resolution training. And that has got, because there's so much conflict, you know.
Yeah, so you're saying the empathy circle, you see how it's sort of part of a lot of other practices, but a lot of empathy work is about conflict resolution. We sure have a lot of that going on.
That's a great, so yes, exactly. I mean, so I've answered my own challenge to some extent, but the challenge remains. And my, if I had to give, I have a minute left. I had to give a 1 minute suggestion on how to make growing the empathy movement more sustainable I think is a good, it's like, what's the revenue model? It's like always a confronting question. And yet that guy that I'm trying to remember, I think it was Father Montana, uh, former president of DePaul University, no money, no mission. And this was by way of saying, there's a lot of good works that need doing and people still need to keep the lights on and buy and buy high-end dog food for the high-end dog, not to mention feed my children. And I hope that he doesn't burn the croissants. I was a little concerned when you went off camera there that it might have set off the smoke alarm or something. But okay, so that's my joke. You don't need to summarize that. What I want to say is, which I already did say, is if you want to get paid for it, it equals whatever you're doing, uh, make a request. Give them a free sample and ask, how much is this service or product or combination thereof worth to you? The potential customer will then answer the question. They'll say, well, I can get it for free around the corner, so it's not worth it. Or, it's like I said, it's worth $20, and I'm looking for $100 price point, let's say. I don't know, 100 is the new 20. That's where I came up with that number. And so that's my one thought that I share with the colleagues, and I share it with you, Edwin. If you want, I mean, it doesn't make sense to get paid for empathy circles as such. That's the entry level. But there may be an advanced version of it. Maybe it's called therapy. I don't know. Maybe it's called conflict resolution. Maybe it's called computer design. That's the thought. If you want the money, ask for it.
Yeah, you're looking at the sort of the financial model of how to, finance an empathy movement. And you see the empathy circle as a first free step, but then you have your offerings and you give people a taste of it and you say, what's this worth to you? And you can sort of get a sense of, what people are willing to pay for it. But the financing of it is just a concern of you for sustainability. You're really wanting
It is. Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel hurt. Thank you for
Okay.
that.
Jana, can I speak to you?
Sure.
Yeah, how to finance an empathy movement, I think is a big, a big question. I'm not very good at that. At how do we do that? It's a lot like it could be a lot like politics, that people put money into, paying for political movements because, they see that this needs to be done. So, will people put in money for an empathy. If they can see a clear movement to finance, maybe that can help.
So you think that sustainability, how to finance an empathy movement is important, and you're thinking of it as like a political movement. People donate to political movements because they feel they're important. So will people see the value of empathy, of the empathy movement, and just contribute to it so that it happens?
Yeah, and then the people in the political movement, they get power and they use the power to rake in the money, right? It's like, yeah, yeah. So I guess there's that way that they, but yeah.
So in politics, money corrupts.
But that's
Absolutely.
how people see they're putting money in to affect their, kind of their financial well-being if they get into power.
So when they get into power, they use the money for their own well-being. They,
So the other thing is maybe with doing an Occupy empathy, and that's just a placeholder, the Occupy empathy. I think it has some problems with the terms, but the idea of having an encampment, setting up, having Vagel, workshops, having everybody gets a Menful app or whatever, and there's all kinds of workshops. Maybe something like that that's out in the public would get people to say, "Hey, I want to support this." Like Black Lives Matter, the organization got tons of money, when they were out there in public.
so you're thinking again, you're saying occupy empathy is a placeholder, but you're thinking in those terms of, having like a big, you know, event or location where people are offering all these different things like vagal toning or everybody gets a Menful app or, some other part.
Yeah, all kinds of different empathy or democracy building training could be happening. Like the citizens' assemblies, people's assemblies, conflict mediation. Uh, and we have experience at Occupy. That's where I got started with the empathy tent was at Occupy. And it was also kind of got the idea for the empathy circle because Occupy was so dysfunctional. People just couldn't relate to each other. I started thinking, well, what if we had something, like we need something like empathy circles for all the participants to be in constant dialogue, that could have, I think, transformed, the camp there.
So you think that these Occupy Empathy has a huge potential for democracy building, for like people's assembly, like and also conflict resolution. And you felt that, I mean, you created the Empathy Circle as a response to Occupy Berkeley, your experience there, where it was dysfunctional. It wasn't people weren't connecting so effectively, and that's why you came up with Empathy Circles, and you kind of want to recreate that situation, but in an idyllic or more utopian or more successful way.
Yeah, we set up in the Capitol Mall and we say, we're not leaving until Republicans and Democrats have empathy circles with each other. We want a bill that every month they have to have a recorded empathy circle about how to bridge the political divides. And, something like that, and I think that'd be fun.
So you envision an encampment in Capitol Mall in DC, and that we're not going until everyone from all sides talks to each other and participates in empathy circles, and that they have an obligate. We have a bill that we promote, you know, legislation that they have to participate. The Congress has to participate in an empathy circle monthly
Yeah.
if they want to stay in their jobs.
Right. I feel very heard. Thank you. Yeah.
So, Brian, would you like to listen to me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll make an effort to speak in pieces. And you can reflect that. You can reflect that. You can just say what I'm saying. Right. So, yeah, so I came up with some. So Edwin just shared this Occupy empathy movement idea with me yesterday, and I love it.
Okay, I heard you say that you've heard the Occupy idea before and you've loved it.
Yeah, and I suggested to name the Empathy Fair for an event like that.
Nice. Yes, an empty fair. And how would you spell fair?
Fair. And but as Edwin was speaking earlier, and he mentioned it again, I thought of more possibilities like the Empathy Park or the empathy playground, or empathy encampment. He mentioned, different possibilities.
Okay, yes, terminology is important. I hear you say that the various names would be helpful.
Yeah, we agree on one.
Mm-hmm,
It
mm-hmm,
might be Occupy Empathy. It might be something else.
mm-hmm.
Occupy is not bipartisan. Let's just say.
Mm. Right. Occupy might have some baggage to it.
Yeah, and yeah, and I'm wondering whether Jill has a way to also do Menful in person.
Interesting. So, yeah, a mindful in-person approach. So would be valuable, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, and I really love how Lou, when it's his turn to speak, kind of includes so many others, acknowledging through humor and just, in a phrase and a little turn of something, he kind of touches everyone with his little magic wand speech.
Yes, yes. So you really appreciate Lou's erudition.
And, well, just acknowledging everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And what else? Something else. The empathy movement, my heart and mind. Um, Yeah, it's weird often for NVCers to come to empathy circles, and Terry's like an exception.
Oh, interesting. So yeah, you don't see a lot of NVC overlap.
I find that sometimes NVCers, when they come, it's like, where are my feelings and needs, and why is no one guessing? And I don't want to just be parroted. And,
Oh,
and then there are exceptions. Like Phoenix is a whole community of empathy circle practitioners that have basically come from NVC.
interesting. Yes. So I guess that you're a little frustrated that the two groups are not working better together.
Well, I personally haven't spent enough time immersed in NVC. So I have a little
Mm-hmm.
taste of NVC,
Mm-hmm.
like an NVCer might come one time to an empathy circle. Like I've had little tastes of NVC, but I
Mm-hmm.
haven't done the NVC practice or training, extensively. And,
Okay.
as people are speaking today, I'm thinking, maybe I should do that, or maybe I need to do that, or maybe somehow it would enrich me or help to connect the communities
Mm-hmm.
if I did more of that.
Yeah, so perhaps opening your mind to the details of NVC might be helpful for you.
Yeah, thanks. I feel heard. Thanks. And you can pick a listener.
Okay, I will pick Jill. Jill, I am sensitive to what you said, and I feel responsibility for triggering your response. So I feel a need to clarify my words. Firstly, an app such as Menful would be so valuable for a movement. It would be enormously valuable because scalability must be ready to
Let me just stop
embrace.
you. Can I just pause? Because I want to get the first chunk, which felt weighty to me, and I want to reflect that back to you, if
Okay.
that's okay. I'm hearing that you perceived a connection between your share and my feelings afterwards. And so you're really willing to add more information to kind of round out the picture, clarify, I think is the word that you used. Did I get that?
Yes, that's what I'm feeling. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That, my background is tech. And so the scalability component is enormous. We need it for a movement. We need it. But you expressed that you had not been heard, and I feel bad about that. I did hear you loud and clear. I also went to your website before we all gathered. That is needed. Scalability is needed. But I think what we're missing here in Lou's sense of it was the money piece. And yes, the money is the primary motivator in our culture, but it's motivation, I think, that we need. So if somebody is hurt and it needs to be heard, they're motivated to go to your Menful app, to Edwin's circles, to attend at somewhere, etc. But most people, so what I felt today is emerging in the 99.9th percentile of empathy and how to address people's needs. What we need is
let me stop you because I'm a
yes.
little bit lost. I think what you're saying is that you're pointing to the money piece being missing, and I haven't understood exactly what you or Lou has meant by that. Maybe if you could clarify that a little bit more.
Okay, yes. Okay. What I feel we've not touched upon is how to motivate thousands, millions to the streets or, whatever to create a movement.
So motivation is what you're seeing not being addressed here. And I'm hearing a little bit of charge in your voice around that. I'm guessing you really want that to be part of the conversation.
I really want the movement.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing so you wonderful people about the perfect approach to expressing empathy toward one another. That's great. What we need, though, I believe, is to get the thousands in the street. And for that to start, we need, the Black Lives Matter is a great example raised. People are pretty aware that many Black people are not treated with the same respect as non-Black people. So that is a problem that is understood. Empathy as a problem that is understood is just not widespread. Yeah. So that I see as the motivation. The motivation.
So I'm hearing the passion in your voice to get this going. Is that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I believe it needs to start with sparking the motivation that we need to convey to people that empathy is the core of humanity and it is under threat. Maybe AI, maybe the old hard right, I don't know, but or profiteers, however it is, we need to spark that motivation, and that is the first thing. And
so you're really wanting to galvanize our efforts towards sparking motivation, and it's time.
No pun intended.
Yeah, right? Double meaning. It's time. Feeling you here.
Yeah, so I think the motivation needs to be pinned on cause effect. We need to express the case of cause and effect. This problem caused by lack of empathy or caring for another human being. Yeah. I love that people over profits, but it just feels too, I don't know, something about it feels too, I'm from Berkeley, it feels too Berkeley. We need that sort of idea that is more motivating to the mainstream. So
it's time. So just reflect, Joe.
Okay.
I didn't realize I was waiting for the reflection. So you're wanting to see like people to put their money where their mouth is to create the motivation to translate all of this softer stuff into something more tangible,
compelling.
So select your listener, Jill.
I'll select you, Edwin, if you're available.
Listening?
Yeah. I am very passionate about doing Menful. And there's so much to do. I can't possibly do it all. I value a balanced life, and yet I sometimes work 14-hour days, trying to make this work. And I'm over 60, so it's not like it was when I was 20. And that's hard, and hardly anyone really sees that.
Yeah, you're really excited about your program Mindful, and you put a lot of time into it, and uh, people don't. It takes a lot of time and energy, and you like to have this balanced life, and people don't see all the effort that you're putting into it.
Yeah. And I feel this kind of impotent rage and resentment against how the United States of America is structured for entrepreneurs, because if you want to get something off the ground, people who invest in it want to see that you're working on it 24/7. And yet, who can afford to do that? Most people need to earn a living, you know? So it's really like a kind of a catch-22. And so I can afford to do that right now for a little while longer, but most of the people that I'm partnering with can't afford to do that. So I'm not feeling met in my level of effort that I'm putting in terms of the people I'm partnering with. And it's not their fault. So I'm just frustrated at the system that we're trying to work within.
So you're frustrated about the system you're working in as an entrepreneur, and the support you're getting, and that you have to put in a lot of time, and maybe you're not being met with that time with the other partners, and there's some frustration about that.
Yeah. 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 I feel heard so well. I have nothing more
Okay.
to say
All
on that.
right. Then we only have 4 minutes left, so we just open it up for any comments. Or Janet, do you want to lead us in any sort of a debrief or anything in the
Whatever you'd
3
like to
minutes?
share. Terry only spoke once, so Terry, is there more that you'd like to share, not reflected, as we kind of wrap things up? Terry's not there; she's off with her dog somewhere.
But I have a thought. I mean, I think this was a great conversation. No, no, that's for sure. The empathy movement has legs. The battle is joined. I mean, I don't want to emphasize my weaknesses, but here is one. I don't really have a high regard for money. And that has been difficult. I'm like the scholar guy, right? I mean, you don't need to know this, right? But you're not going to send me to a venture capitalist. I mean, I've made a lot of ground. I've taken a lot of ground. I've learned a lot of things about the corporate jungle. And I had a couple of great jobs and some good business mentors. That was fortunate. These people were both kind and hardworking. So I learned a few things, I claim, right? I mean, but I share what your feeling is about asking for money. I mean, it's like that itself is a loss of respect there. I mean, nevertheless, if you want the money, here's the principle: you ask for it. That's practice in front of a mirror. And point number 2, which I wish to make: perception of value follows price. So if you want to increase the perception of value, raise the price. See, this is a little tricky. It's not always true, but there's no difference between the chassis of an Oldsmobile and a Cadillac.
Are you talking specifically to me, Lou, or to anybody here?
To
Everybody?
everyone
No,
here,
I'm
I'd
not
like to
talking
let
I am.
Terry.
I mean, I would include you. I mean, I
Yeah.
have talked to
We
venture
want to get
capitalists.
just a
We
quick
have
word
one more
from.
minute, so let
Just want to hear
Terry.
from Terry. Thanks, Lou.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, this has been so timely for me. I think I was hearing that motivation is the core need that Brian is seeing, and I just want to let that percolate through my awareness about how to meet that need in terms of being responsive to communal needs as well as personal ones. And additionally, I am attending a price point seminar on January 6th. So hearing Lou's for like what I'm offering, like my teacher charges $40 a session just for vagal toning, and it doesn't include an empathy circle. And frequently her take is $2,000 a class. I'm charging right now a sliding scale 5 to 25. So I'm just learning, like, how do I value this? How do I it's all, just hearing all of this is really important for me. And that's all I have to say. I mean, I could say more, but I just love you guys. Thanks for being here.
The room is closing in 60 seconds, so you can jump in for the last 60 or jump into the main room.
So, Brian, is there something you'd like to share? Otherwise, I'll share something.
Just want to say thank you to all for your heart and words.
And Jill?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I've come up with an advanced idea to offer, because I realize that some people will never join a free empathy circle, and they're like too exclusive. The professors, the CEOs, the so forth. So I've designed something, but I haven't launched it yet. But I have this in mind called the joy of conflict.
Ooh,
That's funny.
I love it. It makes me curious to hear, like, whoa, tell me more.
So welcome. Is everyone here? Not quite yet?
Yeah, we're all back.
We're all here. So can we do something about the unpin us all or something?
What does the pin mean? I don't know.
The spotlight. This pin is the spotlight. And
I don't, my screen doesn't have a spotlight. So
spotlight for everyone. Let's see how this goes.
If you go to gallery view, you'll see everyone.
Gallery view. All right, maybe that's there we go. Okay, got it. So welcome back, and here we have 32 of us and a few.
Whoops.
That's on me, guys. I touched a button.
Oh, okay.
Been touching buttons, and I touched a button, but it should be all fixing itself. I apologize. I tried to close the screen.
Okay,
I touched a button. I messed that all up. That's on
All
me.
right. We're all here again.
You're
so
forgiven.
So I'd like to call on people, and if you'd like to share in like 30 seconds or a maximum a minute, I don't know if we have a minute for everyone. 30
seconds is going to be, yeah.
How this was for you, and how you would like, or how you would like to build an empathy movement. I don't remember the exact instruction here. Is it? I'm sure. Yeah. So, Tony, you want to start? Just to debrief how the empathy circle was for you. Here, please take 30 seconds to share your ideas and projects for building the empathy movement. Thank you.
I would love to, JW, and at the same time, bio needs and a need for food prevented me from attending. So I passed the baton.
Okay, well, it's wonderful for you to join us here, and thank you so much for sharing what you shared, and it's just a real joy to have you here. Thank you. Susan, would you like to share? Is there one Susan? Shaw? And then I'll call on Ben.
I found this very challenging. This was new to me. As far as listening in such short phrases almost, rather than hearing somebody for 3 to 4 minutes and then trying to say a gist of the whole thing that they said. I found this very challenging and at the same time very exciting.
Oh, thank you for sharing. Yeah, well, it's like riding a bicycle. It takes a little practice.
A lot of practice.
Not that much. You'd be surprised. Ben, would you like to share?
Yeah, thank you, Jana. This is a familiar practice for me, so found a lot of joy and pleasure in it, and real inspiration in hearing from the people in my breakout, and the work they're doing, and how they're wanting to build the empathy movement and cultivate empathy in the work they're doing. Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Joy. Brandon, is this new for you?
Yeah, I wasn't one of the leaders, Did you
Yeah,
want me
just if
to
you'd like to
just,
share how,
oh,
what is the question?
oh,
To
whatever?
share your ideas and projects for building the empathy movement. So it could be some idea that's come to you now, or you're here for a
Okay.
reason. So,
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, uh, I am a graduate business professor. I work with doctorate students to get them through their dissertations, and um, that's a relationship building process. You have to really get to know your students, especially with AI out there. You have to learn their reading so that you can distinguish it from, what might have been created by Gen AI or ChatGPT, Gemini, and all those office assistants. And so this exercise, especially changing the roles as we just did with Ben and Marcy and the others of our team, um, it it allowed for you to really see in full circle what what this is about. And uh, it was interesting to be the speaker and then following it up with being the listener and trying to switch hats real quick. But I'm glad we did that because when I was a listener, I found myself speaking differently and trying to be a little clearer and just very carefully structuring my sentences and words so that the listener then didn't have such a hard time. So I was even empathetic as the presenter of the information as well as the listener of the information. So that was my good takeaway from this process.
yeah, that's a wonderful takeaway. I like to say sometimes that we also become empathic speakers, not just empathic listeners. Aro, go ahead. You have your hand raised. Thank you.
Yes, I thank you. Yeah, as someone who has always struggled my whole life with keeping with my attention span and thoughts that go in my head and trigger off other people's thoughts and not fully listening to the whole thing, this is really great for me. And I'm learning. I'm getting trained to become a certified trainer through the CNVC Nonviolent Communication Center. So this has been wonderful for me. I love this. I've been really inspired by all the different speeches, speakers here. I did want to bring up Normsy. It is a social media detoxifier depolarization tool that was created by Civic Health Project. It is a philanthropic project, and they are looking for volunteers who would be willing to get, there's an X account that you would have to create and a portal, and then you can work on, the digital, social media where there's so much so much polarization, so much conflict. And that's really a place where we need to also focus. So if you're interested, send me a message and I'll let you know more about it.
Sure,
Thank you.
thanks. If you put it in the chat, sure.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to share in the chat. Thank you. Michael, would you like to share? Or this is
Yeah.
30 seconds.
Yeah. What for me, one of the key things is how I can learn myself to be a much more able to listen carefully to people I talk with and help and find ways to help support decision making in the various joint decision making in the various groups I'm with. But it's also a really nice, simple tool, and it is something that could be easily learned and taught to share. That's one of the really nice things about it. So I don't think it's unreasonable to think of 8 billion people learning it. Just a bit of organization needed, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's our vision. Twesigye, would you like to speak, or you have no NR? So I don't know if you want to share in this part of the empathy circle or not. It's not required. Nita, would you like to share how this has been for you?
I was glad to be here today. It was a very soothing and wonderful experience in the breakout room. And of course, I enjoyed the speakers. and I plan to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Nita. And let's see, Jillian, your ideas, projects for building the empathy movement, or anything else you'd like to share? 30 seconds.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this. I'm a PhD student at Indiana University, Bloomington, and I study things like empathy and depolarization. So I'm really passionate about this kind of stuff. And in the academic world right now, as Edwin kind of hinted, it's kind of a mess, and they're kind of veering on empathy being a negative trait to have. And so I'm really interested in helping build the empathy movement from inside academia to kind of get the definition straight of what might or might not actually be empathy. But so I put this in the chat. Some people were, yes, go Hoosiers, right? Some people were interested in some of the stuff I was talking about. I have a Substack article that's coming out next week on the idea of exercising empathy, so not having too much or too little, and how we can moderate and focus that. Oh, that's cool. Marching 100. Wow, lots of Indiana connections. Awesome.
Wonderful. Thank you. Martin, would you like
Oh,
to?
I think my main thing is take from this is it's kind of drinking through a fire hose. I mentioned that in our group, but I got a lot of good information. I don't really have any organization to share about, but I do like the connection between nonviolent communication and empathy, at least that I heard a lot of people talking about.
Wonderful. Thank you. Let's see, Sebastian, you have NR, so we are recording this. So if you'd like, you can share a few words.
Yeah, actually, my insight is when I'm thinking about the growing of this movement, when I just joined here today, I realized, oh, there is actually a big movement and many people are working on it. So it's actually growing, And I got to know the Empathy Summit and the Empathy Center, I guess 2 years ago when I invited Edwin to my podcast, The Empathizer. And so it was the first time for me to joining here. And my key point I got out of this empathy circle was that I'm not alone on working on empathy and bringing it to the world.
Wonderful realization. Thank you. Penny, and then Marcy.
Well, I really appreciated our empathy circle and the reminder of how much it brings me into the present moment and connection. And I also am aware of the systemic, what I experience as systemic violence in capitalism, and my fears for the potential for the movement to be co-opted by capitalist enterprise, no matter how wonderful the intention is. I believe that capitalism is destroying our planet.
Okay, so I hear less optimism, perhaps. Is that what I hear? Perhaps. Thank you for sharing. Let's see. Or maybe this is the antidote. Marcy?
Yes, I really enjoyed participating in the empathy circle. I think it's a great, simple technique that could be very useful and is much needed right now. I learned about this program as I was researching for my dissertation. I did a dissertation on perspective taking, and so Jillian, I think you and I are kind of along the same track a little bit. Very interesting ideas about, trying to figure out what is empathy, what are the different constructs that go into empathy, and it can get very confusing and messy, but great efforts. I would love to be a part of it as you move forward as much as I can. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Jill?
I was just
30 seconds.
Chasing references and Fritz Breithoff because I've seen Problem. I have just joyed to encounter so many interesting and like-minded and humorous souls about this topic. And I also wonder if anyone would like to bring their conflicts to be mediated / in the conflict resolution session, because we're still trying to the question of how do we motivate people, how do we bring more people in. That's one of the questions Menful has been wrestling with, and our answer has been, we create videos, we show them how it's done, we let people experience what it's like to actually be heard. So if this turns you on, I put a link in the chat. I'm hiring actors because people don't want to come on the camera, but I thought maybe this group would be more interested and available for mild mannered conflicts. That your neighbor, Lou, we can get a stand-in.
It's not that mild mannered.
Yeah, wonderful. Lou, go ahead. 30
Thank
seconds.
you. Well, I mean, I'm going to solve the empathy movement, how to build an empathy movement in 30 seconds. Here's how you do it. Keep beating the drum. Beat the drum and keep beating it. Next.
Yeah, thank you. So I don't know if we'll have time for everyone, but so I'm trying to get to everyone who's not who didn't put ECF, even though some of you are experienced with empathy circles. Sandra, you want to say briefly how you envisioned building the empathy movement?
Yes, I'd like to. I'm continuing to be part of it, and taking it step by step. And I really resonated with the experience, that was shared this morning by Edwin, when you are a therapist and you're sitting on the other side of the desk and you're doing certain tasks and activities. And then I'm making that transition into the real world of people and getting out from behind the desk and taking that step by step. And this is part of my process of doing that and opening up, my heart to the real life of empathy and what that means. So that's why I keep showing up and enjoying the moment. And someday I envision that I will be doing something more for this. But right now I'm taking it step by step. So thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And Bob, would you like to share?
So grateful to Edwin and his patience with us as we learn how to be empaths. So thanks, Edwin.
And Tony, you want to share anything that's come to mind in the meantime? No? Thank you. Thank you so much for what you shared. Let's see. So we have time, or do you want to close, Edwin?
We can take, if we go over just a few minutes, I think it'd be okay if we
can
hear
do
from
a
others.
few more here. Sally?
I'm going to just use some of Daniel's words that, that we're the need to be heard is so important. And in our world, we need a culture where everyone is heard. And this is the place to do it. And I find it very powerful. And it's makes your life more wonderful, as Rosie would say, Tony. And it just also makes everyone else's life more wonderful. So I just appreciate this and all the work everyone's doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Tarja?
I noticed that the more that I authentically self-express, the more that I have to be able to give to others in regard to empathy and listening, presence, and everything. So it takes me to do the type of work that gets rid of whatever's blocking me from empathy. And I'm so grateful for this circle. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Tarja. Tina?
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, everyone. I'm very grateful to be here with everyone here today. For my group, I had Bob, Bill, Sandra, and Twigse. I'm sharing what my key takeaway was in terms of building a movement. I think what Twigse shared was tapestry of empathy. Think that can be, that we can continue to weave and connect and share what the empathy movement is about. And for that, I'm grateful. but that is my response to that question is what I learned from Trixie, which is a tapestry, building a tapestry of empathy worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Tony, go ahead.
Thanks, JW. I just thought of, I watched the previous summit, and great job, Kara and Edwin. I watched the previous summit. I had a talk ready to go, watched it, listened to Jody Jensen, and literally threw my talk away and started all over just because of the way she defined empathy. And I realized I had in my mind, an excellent balance of the way she did it and I did it. What I was going to say is my original talk was going to be on silent empathy, screaming empathically, self-empathy, and Cyrano empathy. Cyrano empathy being where sometimes I give my friends prompts and they just go with my prompt and just see what happens. And they're amazed by the connection that happens. But what I really wanted to share with the group was when I learned silent or self-empathy from Rosie. My dad was a wedding singer at his wedding. They were friends that way. So Rosie kind of mentored me privately. And when we talked about silent empathy, I literally thought it meant create a cartoon of voices in your head and have them talk to each other. So for anybody who hasn't heard that version of self-empathy, I literally hear voices going, Tony, are you sure you're feeling frustrated? Well, he just said he's frustrated, didn't he? Like, I literally have that version of voices in my head doing self-empathy. So if anybody isn't super comfortable with self-empathy, just imagine a cadre of cartoon characters voicing in your mind and empathically listening to you. Thank you, JW. Thank you, Edwin. Thank you, CJ. And JLM, hope the Hoosiers take it in a few weeks.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Ingrid, you want to share?
Yeah. I'm going to echo what Lou said in my own words, and that's keep showing up. Just show up. That's how we build the movement. For me, it's always a pleasure to be there. I love seeing people that I haven't seen in a few months from previous trainings. I love the ones who always show up. I love seeing the new people. I love seeing you all. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ingrid. Maria? It's a little late where you are.
Yeah, I think what really stood out for me today was that this format of the empathy circle really gives a place to be in touch with us, with what is happening inside us. And that is really beautiful. So thank you, Edwin, and thank you all. And all the people in my circle. It was really inspiring.
Thank you, Maria. Rakshaya, are you available? 30 seconds.
Of course, a very spiritual experience, and it was a introspection, and I can see that many people are getting deeply connected. Thank you.
Thank you, Akshaya. It's even later for Akshaya. She's in India. Yeah. Let's see. Who else? Daniel?
Thank you, everybody. It was a fantastic experience, both the part of the summit that I saw and in our empathy circle. And I get a sense of a little bit of how would it be if there is a sort of saturated group of people that have experienced so much listening that they're actually now relaxing and they become this I can feel it, like this real presence in the world, that can finally let the world off the hook, so to speak. Anyways, thank you. Wonderful time.
Thank you. Bill?
Yeah, I had a great time, and I don't see Tegze there now, but he came from Uganda and had some, challenges, and it's just great to see people who, say, okay, I have challenges, I'm going to do it anyway. So that echoes what Lou and everyone has said. I put a bunch of information about the training. We're doing the training and things like that. But also for the academics, it was an academic study done at Harvard. Deepak Chopra and a few other, heavy hitters called the Mother Teresa effect. And what they found was that our resilience towards chemicals that resist disease were amped up after seeing a video about the work of Mother Teresa. And I believe that the Empathy Circle does the same thing. So I'm interested in anybody who might be interested in that. Thank you all. Great to see you.
Thank you, Bill. I just shared the Scientific American article that was written about empathy circles, featuring empathy circles and the science of empathy. Let's see, who else am I missing? Edwin, Kara, do you want to share
Kara?
anything? I think we're at the end of everybody.
I didn't get to sit in on the empathy circle
See,
today,
go.
but I sure loved this entire thing and what I am hearing, the energy and impact of this. This is why I come.
Yeah. Kara did us a huge favor. She sits in the main room for people who wander in late so that we don't interrupt the process. So
And
thank you.
Jonathan?
Oh, Jonathan, I don't see. Oh, there he is. Sorry.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone, and it was lovely experience for me. And I just want to remind everyone to save your chat, and there'll be a few more messages in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. And Tony, I'd like to ask you to next time talk about all those empathies at our next summit or a future summit. Edwin?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you can close.
Yeah, I want to thank Kara for being our main room host, and Jana and Jonathan. It's the four of us kind of host these summits, and we invite you to join us and take part. Really appreciate everyone taking part, coming to the summit. Really warms my heart to see that we have this movement, growing, because I think with the current social political situations, this is what we need to bring the different factions together. It's just seeing everyone's common humanity, and that's really what empathy brings, is just not seeing enemies, but people that we can listen to and kind of support them, and listening to each other. And I brought up in our circle the occupy empathy idea, that maybe to be moving towards having some encampments like the old Occupy was, but it's about empathy where everyone's included. So it's kind of an idea I'm toying around with, and it was fun to talk about that. In terms of next steps, I posted into the chat. You can be a speaker. If you're, feel like you're an empathy activist, you can click on that link and send us an application to be a speaker at a future summit. We have 3 more coming up this year on this topic, and 1 on the empathy circle. So if you want to talk about the benefits of the empathy circle, or some aspect of the empathy circle, we have a summit, I think, in June on that. You can fill out the feedback form and just click on that link, and you can give us some feedback about the summit. It's always good to hear your thoughts, and so we can improve the summit. You can be a volunteer, join Kara, Jana, and Jonathan and I to host these summits. And there's a link there for how you can join. We have a meeting every Friday at 10:30 Pacific time, a.m. So you can join one of those summits. The next is next summit is April 4th. You can click on that to register. And then you can check out our website, the Empathy Center. It's a 501c3 nonprofit, our organization. And there's a link there to the training that Bill mentioned. So you can click on that, and you can schedule empathy circles see the schedule for empathy circles worldwide. If you host an empathy circle, let us know. We can put your event on the calendar. And as Jonathan was saying, if you want to save your chat with all these links, and you just click on those 3 buttons in the chat area, and do save as. And let me get us into the view, into the gallery view. So we'd like to end with applause hands. So if we get a group picture of everyone, and let's get those applause, and it always makes a good photograph for our Facebook and social media. So thank you, everyone. The meeting is adjourned, and hope to see you next time. Thanks so much for joining us. And there'll be a group of facilitators that stay back just for a debrief. So see you again next time.
Some of you have raised hands, so if they'd
Thank
like
you.
to say something, I'm not sure if that